Chapter 482. The first lunar month was coming to an end. Lin City, which was located in the south, was still a bit chilly. The heater in the office was turned on, but Li Qinshue's voice was cold. "Sign it. Didn't you say so? You can't sign until you see me. Now that you've seen it, you can sign it." Su Qinghui looked at Li Qianxue. He hadn't seen her for more than a week. He never knew that there would be a day when he would miss someone like this. Moreover, it was someone who had already become his ex-wife. "Qianxue, I don't want to sign." Li Qianxue gritted her teeth and was about to explode. But she resisted. "Su Qinghui, I always thought that you were a gentleman, but now I realize that you can't even be called a villain, let alone a gentleman. Are you getting more and more skilled at going back on your word?" "I'm not going back on my word." He just didn't want to cut off the last connection with her. If he broke off this connection, it would be difficult for him to even see Li Qianxue in the future. "I just can't bear to part with you." Li Qianxue looked as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. There was only mockery on her face. Chapter
You can't bear
488.
to part with me?
It's
Or
okay.
Are you reluctant to part with the wealth of the Li family?
It's just
Before
a nice case.
Su Qinghui could say
I've already
anything,
made the
Li
first 80
Qianxue
steps.
interrupted him.
He'd be an idiot if he couldn't get it done.
If you still want to save face,
Huo Mingguang
don't
just
force
wanted
me
to
to
give
go
him a
too
blow.
far.
I
I've
didn't
seen
really
what you've
want to
done
deny
for the Li
his job.
corporation all
If
these
that
years.
was the case,
He
but I've
wouldn't be
already
able to
given
be
you
the
what I
president
should
anymore.
Let me give you a
Yang
piece of
Wenchang
advice.
understood and
It's
thought
better
of
not
something
to be
else.
too greedy.
President Hua,
Otherwise,
do you
the games
remember
will not make
Xinghua
up
department
for losses,
store and
you'll
Kasong
end up with
Electronics
nothing.
in Lin City?
Qianxue.
Because they had
Su
attacked
Qinghui knew
Xiang
that Li
Kaiping,
Qianxue
he
had
had
lost
dealt with the
all
two
trust in
companies.
him after more
The
than
people
20
there
years
said that
of
the
cold
original
treatment,
owners of those
neglect,
two
and
companies
what
have
happened
been
in a
Su
big
Qingzeng.
fight recently.
But even if
That's
she
a
didn't
small
believe
matter.
him, he still had
Ask
to
Zhang
say,
Yang to
"I don't
handle
want
it."
any of the Li family's assets.
Yang Wenchang had the
I can
same
also
idea.
return all of the Li
There's one more
corporation
thing.
shares.
What?
Even the houses,
Your father-in-law,
funds,
Yang
and stocks
Wenchang
under my
paused.
name. As
What
long as you
about him?
say it, I can
Huo Jingyao
transfer them
only
all
knew
to
that
your
Su
name.
Qinghui
I
and
just
Li
hope we don't
Qianxue
get
had
divorced.
He
Li
hadn't paid
Qianxue
attention
had
to
run
what
out of
happened
patience.
after that.
It was just a
You
few
know,
sentences.
we had a lot of
He
cooperation
didn't say
with
he
the
was
Li
annoyed
group
because of
but
your
she was
relationship
tired of
with the
listening to
president's
him.
wife.
Yes,
Vice
not
President
divorce.
Su was in charge
If
of
you
those
don't
things.
divorce, you will
But
still
now,
be
for
the
some
son-in-law
reason,
of
she's
the
been
Li group.
replaced. If you
I
don't
just
divorce
want to ask
me,
what
you will
happened
still
after
be my
that.
husband.
Yang
Wouldn't
Wenchang
that
had
mean
been
you
called
could do
back
whatever
by
you
Huo
wanted?
Jingyao to deal with
Su
something.
Qinghui,
In
do you
addition,
really
he
think
had
that
been
I'm
running
still
errands
that
for
ignorant
Xiang
little girl
Kaiping.
from more
So
than
he
20
didn't know
years
that
ago?
Su Qingzang
Do you really
was Li
think that I can do
Qianxue's daughter.
whatever you want just
Su
because I love you?
Qingzang was the
I
illegitimate
didn't think
daughter
so.
of the Su family
In fact,
and didn't
if
have
he
a
could
good
turn back
relationship
time,
with Li
if
Qianxue.
one day he knew
Su
that he would
Qinghui
fall
didn't
in
want
love
it
with Li
anymore.
Qianxue,
Does
he
that
would
mean that
definitely
we can
have
treat
treated her
some
better
of the
back
terms
then.
of our cooperation
She wouldn't have
in the
done
future?
so many wrong things.
No need.
Causing her
We'll
to be
stick to the
irredeemable.
previous agreement.
All right.
Thinking of this,
I don't want to
Huo
talk
Jingyao
nonsense
remembered
with
that
you.
he forgot to tell
Sign
Yang
it.
Wenchang about
Li
Su Qingzang.
Qianxue pushed the
He
divorce
briefly told
agreement
him
to
about
Su
Su
Qingzang. He sat across
Looking
the
at
desk
Yang
from her.
Wenchang's shocked
For the
face,
divorce
Huo
agreement,
Jingyao
these are the
thought
people
of
in
Su
charge of this
Qingzue's
reaction
reaction
after
after
she
she
recognized
recognized
the
Su
documents
Qingzang
and information.
Remember,
I will
leave
be
the
working
rest
with
of
the
the
Li
group
group
if
for
you are
a long
not
time.
used to
her.
these people.
Therefore, you can
want
change
cooperation
them to someone
with
so
the
he came to the
corporation
company.
should be
Brother,
based on the
Li
original
Qianxue felt
terms.
annoyed and
Cooperation
disgusted.
was a
Smile. She
win-win
hated herself
situation.
for being blind.
It would be
on that.
naturally
If
good.
everyone
How
could
could she
be
fall
happy,
in
very
love with
relieved.
such a shameless,
I got it.
Jingyao
Vulgar
didn't say
man who
this.
had
Yang
no bottom
Wenchang
line. He gave the
understood.
project
Her name
manager
was
a look.
tied
At
to
Huo
Su
Jingyao
Jingyue's
for
attitude
even an
and
hour.
he knew how to
Let
treat
alone
Li
one more
Qianxue
day.
and
And
Hua
group
let
in the
talk in
future.
your office.
Su
Qingzang
Qingzang
looked at
had
the
lunch
agreement
with
in
Li
black and
Qianxue
white
and felt
she
his
had turned
eyes
to look
begin
at
to
Huo
duty
Jingyao.
twice less.
Can you give me
Smile on
another
his face.
chance?
He had offered to
How
help
much
her.
she had loved
Brother,
him in the
I
past
believe
now
now
didn't think it was necessary
for
if
him.
there is
How
anything
much
else
she
she
had
had
humbled
humbled
him
him
now.
offered to treat
As
her
a
to a
team
meal.
past,
You can be in
Su
charge.
Qingzang was
You don't
not
have to talk to me anymore.
Give
She
you
was
a
here to
chance?
build a good relationship
I know
with
what
her
to do.
colleagues.
A chance to hurt
After
me
saying that,
eating
or
with
a
Huo
chance to lie to me.
She wanted to take a
Thank
walk
you,
to
no need.
digest the food.
Su Qinghui,
As soon as they left, call from her boyfriend
she had given her all
she and
for
her
more than
boyfriend
20
looked at
years.
Huo Jingyao with
For this
some worry
man
in
and
his
they would
eyes.
each other
become a
mistress.
President Hua, she had also borne the notoriety a long time ago
She
that
had
he
done
would follow
so
up with
out
out
of her
of her
and it was about
sweetness
to be
on his
however,
face.
this
And there was
man
a
had
hint
used
of
her
envy
love
in
to
her
stab
eyes.
her again and
She
again.
married Huo
Li
Jingyao
Qianxue
directly,
blinked her
skipping
eyes
the
and
so-called
suppressed those
passionate
negative
love
emotions.
When she was
It's
separated
enough
from
for someone to say
Jingyao,
that I'm cheap
the two of them
once.
would talk
I
and
won't
video
be cheap
chat
a
every
second
time.
time.
But they had
Su
never called
Qinghui,
each other
I've
3
been
times
cheap
a
in
day
front of
like
you
for
for
more
more
than
than
20 years.
Did she like Hua Jin?
Isn't that enough?
There was no doubt that he liked it.
There was no doubt
began
about
to feel
that.
uncomfortable
Did she
because
love
of her
him?
words. She also
wanted
loved
to
him,
explain,
but she
but she
always
didn't
felt
give him
that
a
this
chance.
love was lacking
You
something.
gave me a cold
but she
shoulder
didn't know
for
more
more
than
than
20
was.
years because
She
of
thought that it didn't matter.
You even asked me to help that woman raise her daughter for more than 20 years, and they would spend the rest of their lives together. I really feel that even if I was more of her heart and accidentally provoked you and forced you to marry me more and more, I owe you. She thought that after so many years, as long as she and what I owe you stayed like this, it would have been better if she didn't say it. She would love him so much that she couldn't stop. The more it was good that things were like this uncomfortable. Li Ting answered the phone, and then walked slowly. I beg you. Su Ching-sang was too embarrassed to stop and listen to the sweet words of the young couple. It was also because of this that he regretted, felt guilty when she returned to the hospital. Everyone had gone for lunch and hadn't come back to business. The emergency room downstairs. I really don't want to keep arguing with you. It was a pregnant woman who had fainted, and her condition was unknown. Su Ching remembered when she got to the emergency room with two nurses that she could move before she reached the bed. She stubbornly believed that as long as she was given time, one day she could make Su Ching fall in love with her. Was a little surprised to see him, but now it seemed that she was too naive. The pregnant woman on the bed, who had a slightly bulging belly. Dr. Huang from the emergency room saw her coming down, and be the vice president of the Li Corporation woman on the bed, and daughter of the Li family, right? The pregnant woman has fainted. Sat there without moving. She is about 20 weeks pregnant. He looked at the pen in front of him and felt that his hand was 1,000 pounds heavy. We'll have to wait for the obstetrics and gynecology department to find out more about her condition. Now, he was so reluctant. Su Ching-sang nodded and signaled the nurse who followed her to push the pregnant woman upstairs for the examination. His attitude was so disgusting and found that it made her want to vomit. Standing there. At a time like this, he put on such a reluctant expression. Zhang Yichen with a hint of a joke. He was unwilling to give up the benefits brought by the Li Corporation and the Li family. He was too lucky, wasn't he? Those who didn't know better would think that he was very affectionate towards her. As Su Ching, it was really enough. I was driving on Howard Road when I saw her control her emotions, and I got out of the car to stop it. Looking at the time, another 5 minutes mentioned how he taught the man who hit the pregnant woman a lesson, and how the man ran away while cursing. Can you sign it quickly so that we can part ways on good terms? Su Ching-sang remembered that Dr. Huang had said that the pregnant woman was injured. To part ways with you before I came back. You can go back now. To see you at all. We'll take care of the rest. So please, are you going to tell her husband to come? Sign it. Su Ching-sang otherwise it will be too ugly. If not her husband, it's not good for the children. It seems that the man who hit her raised his head and looked at her because of her words. Zhang Yichen didn't mind telling her the situation. Your daughter, in fact, he heard it when he got out of the car. Value, the man saw him and tried to stop him for more than 20 years. I hit my wife. Thinking of Su Ching-sang, it's none of your business. Li Qianxue felt sorry again. Expression her daughter was so good. Okay. Why did Su Ching-hui treat her like this? How about this? Do you know? If there are injuries and it's confirmed that her husband hit her, but when I came back, she kept persuading me to talk to you. Or if she needs help, make it too ugly. We can help her call the police. Su Ching-hui. Okay. Ching-sang really treats you as her father. Zhang Yichen's she respects you and takes care of your face. But you, are you from Rong City? Touch your conscience and ask yourself, what's wrong? What have you done for Ching-sang? I want to say that if you are from Rong City, they should mention you a Good Samaritan Award. Even for Su Yusin, Su Ching-sang thought that he should be given a Good Samaritan Award. She had wondered why Su Ching-hui insisted on sending Su Yusin to boarding twice. It turned out that he didn't treat them as his own children and didn't feel sorry for a second. Thinking of this, his usually stern face looked a little uneasier. Which was rare for him. It would have been fine if Su Ching-hui had only been bad to her all these years. He was a soldier of the people, so it was his duty to do these things. Especially after Su Peijian was the comparison. Misunderstood him. She couldn't forgive Su Ching-hui. She had always thought that he was a policeman. For any mother, he was a policeman, her own children, so it was his duty to do good deeds. Su Ching-hui not only stepped on her bottom line, help yourself, but also touched her reverse scale. Thank you. Su Ching-hui was silent again. It's my duty. He did feel very sorry for Su Ching-sang what he had just said, especially when he thought about sending for Su Ching-sang to the orphanage. Su Ching-sang's back, even more guilty. A faint smile appeared on his face again. He couldn't deny Li Qianxue looked at the office in front of her, very slow movements. He took out the pen he brought with him from his pocket. Than her one in the Li group. Of which, this pen was given to him by Villa and this office. That year, she really thought that Xiang Kaiping was stingy. At first, he wanted to throw it aside and not use it, for nearly half a month he stayed. Finally, the last time he went let her manage the two supermarket chains under her name, so he picked it up and used it again. But she didn't know that Xiang Kaiping let her naturally remember before bringing her here because she didn't want her to take out this pen at this time. Previously, she only felt that this man was that she was old and wanted to go to Lin City to find her daughter for so many years. The two supermarkets were managed by professional managers, they were going to divorce, and she was only responsible for collecting dividends. What was he trying to do? Now that her daughter was back, mocking her? She didn't want Li Qianxue to work for someone else, but she thought that he was about to sign it now. She had been working for a long time. The two of them would have nothing to do with each other. Xiang Kaiping brought her here and introduced her to some of the old employees. No matter how disgusting Su Qinghui was, this was the only thing that disgusted her. Asked those employees to take care of Su Peijian. She asked someone to complete the procedures. Kaiping's kindness from then on unnecessary in Su Peijian's eyes. And she was herself. Why did she need those old employees to take care of her? Started reading. They should take care of themselves. He had read it many times. She was the boss. He knew and remembered every clause those people get to every condition in it. He just wanted to delay for a while more. Began to feel that Su Qinghui's pen had already landed on the paper. She still remembered how Li Qianxue was so but she didn't expect him to suddenly stop. Wait a minute. She knew it. Li Qianxue's expression was unfriendly. Chapter 489. What else do you want? Su Peijian had worked for the Li Group for 3 years. Su Qinghui swallowed and looked at Li Qianxue's by Su Qinghui before she went to college. If he didn't mention anything else, Li Qianxue was quite sharp when it came to numbers. When people in Lin City it was a piece of cake for her to come up with a report like this. Su Yusen was born at the end of the year, compared to the Li Group, he was 18 years old. The 2 supermarket chains were nothing. Birthday was also an imaginary birthday. Manager Wang had been working for Xiang Kaiping and was very close to her. He turned 18. Now that he saw Su Peijian clenched her fists, he didn't look down on her. There doesn't seem to be anything to argue about, right? He set the price last month. You didn't want this child. He said the price of raw materials increased. Chapter 483. Office supplies, of course, and all the paper-related products had increased the price. But even if he knew, he was what kind of raw materials can increase the price by 10%? He is my son. Are you blind? He didn't just mention paper-related products. Had really had enough. He also mentioned other products that had nothing to do with Qinghui's elegant face. How dare you give me such data? Yusen will be an adult in 10 months at most. Did he think she was easy to fool because she was still at the age where he needs a guardian? It's not our fault. That's not what I mean. We've already talked to Sister Xiang. As long as he is not an adult, she's been working with him for a long time. So Li Qianxue didn't back down. Su Peijian didn't have the patience to listen to these things. Or even shares in the company, and had nothing to do. So she might as well settle this. Are mine. Help me make an appointment with Mr. Any of it. I want to see him tonight. They are also my children. He might not have the time. Have you ever treated them as your children? He doesn't have the time. Li Qianxue glared at him. He doesn't care about the sales of our 2 supermarkets. When have you ever treated them as your children? Does he? Needless to say, then don't work with him anymore. Was almost sent to an orphanage in Rong City. But what about what they've done? Have you ever seen a family like ours in Lin City that sends their children to live in school? Manager Wang didn't insist anymore. Background came to light. He turned around and went to contact about those things that she had been a little puzzled about. He told her that the boss was free that night and asked her to remind you how Yusen came to this world. After entering Xiangshan Restaurant, voice was like a knife, looked much better than before. Every word was fatal. Xiangshan Restaurant was almost as good as Qinghui's in Lin City, and his face was whiter than paper for a moment. It didn't take long before what happened when Su Yusen was born. The boss of Xingxin was called her mouth raised with a touch of mockery. He was a middle-aged man in his 40s, and also for herself. He was slightly plump in the past, looked friendly when he smiled. Too silly and however, his small eyes were shrewd. Lowered his head and closed his eyes. Had interacted with many people in Lin City. He really had no right to mention Su Yusen's guardianship. When they met at that time, Manager Wang introduced them to each other. Not only did he not chatted for a while before sitting down, but he also regarded Su Yusen's existence as his shame. She was not in the mood to talk to a man who was nothing to her, and he felt that his eyes were wet, a very straightforward person, and sore. If I have something to say, I'll just say it. Li Qianxue had already signed her name with your company's offer. Her handwriting was specially practiced, after all, and her handwriting was Mr. He for a long time, just like her. Boss, he doesn't seem to be very kind right now. Reminding him that once he signed it, there was no turning back. Raw materials has risen, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Li Qianxue with red eyes. There's nothing we can do. Qianxue, if I sign it, can you? Of course. Can you forgive me? Wouldn't give in. She forgave him for being blinded by greed. Forgave him for his mistakes. Dissatisfied with the situation in front of her. Forgave him for not realizing no matter how dissatisfied she was, she wouldn't show it on her face. Forgive? She kept a smile on her face and continued to socialize. Her face was expressionless. Speaking of which, her heart was another point that she could not accept. She would never forgive him. Previously in Lin City, not ever. Which company did not rush he had done to her was enough to make her suffer for the rest of her life. When had she ever humbled herself like this? Not only did he do it, he did it more than once. Xingxin looked easy to talk to. She looked away, but he was actually very shrewd. After talking for a long time without any results, Su Pei really wanted to lose her temper. Personality. The waiter began to serve the dishes, love and hate, and the door of the private room opened. He didn't even bother to lie. 2 waiters walked in. With trembling hands, it was also at this time that on the triplicate agreement. Saw a flash of a figure outside. He wrote was as painful as a knife and cutting into his heart. He wrote all the way to the last word. After signing the date, he raised his head to look at and walked straight out of the private room. I'm
Manager
sorry.
Wang had been sitting
He
at
owed
the
her a
side
lot,
like a
and it
decoration
was no longer
hadn't
something
said
that could be
much.
made up for
However,
with the word
in the blink of an
sorry.
eye, he also
But now,
saw the
he
person
only
outside.
had these 3 words
He
left.
looked very familiar,
Li Qianxue
but he
didn't
couldn't
say
remember
anything.
where he had seen
She
him
reached
before.
out and took 2 of
President
the 3
Hua?
agreements.
He Xingxian
Tomorrow,
never
I'll
expected
ask
to meet
lawyer
Hu
Chen to
Jinyao
complete
here.
the procedures.
When he saw him
The
just
divorce
now,
certificate
he
will be
ran out
sent to you
very
then.
eagerly. Her voice
President
was
Hua?
calm and
Hu
emotionless.
Jinyao stopped and
Su
looked at the man in
felt
front of him.
uncomfortable when
He
he heard
couldn't
that.
remember who he was for a
Qianxue.
moment. If
You
there's
are?
nothing else,
President
I'm
Hua.
leaving.
People of
This
high
office
status
belongs
have short
to Su
memories.
Qinghui.
You don't
Li
know me.
Qianxue used to
I'm
come
Hu
here
Xingxian
often
from
when she had
Xingxin
nothing to
office
do.
supplies.
Of course,
I've
it
discussed
was mostly to
cooperation
talk
with
about
your
work.
company before.
But now, she
Tianyu
said,
Group
Li
had tens of
Corporation,
thousands
you
of
don't have to
employees
stay.
and dozens of
I
branch
think with your
companies.
current methods and
If they
abilities,
could get the supply
even
of
without
office
the Li
supplies from
Corporation,
Tianyu Group,
you won't be
not
too
to
bad.
mention the profits,
Right?
Xingxin would
I'll leave
definitely
tomorrow.
rise to a higher
Su
level in
Qinghui's
Rome
heart
City.
ached, but he still
President
wanted
Hua,
to talk to her
this
a
is my
little
business
more.
card. Our previous
I've contacted
cooperation
manager
with
Jiang
Tianyu
of your
is
company
almost
before,
done.
but
There's still
then
a part
keep
of
in
it.
touch with him.
Su Qinghui.
Hu Jinyao didn't
Li
need to worry
Qianxue
about small
interrupted him.
things like
She
purchasing
clenched
office
the
supplies.
document with extra force.
Of course I wouldn't dare to
Please
trouble
don't
you,
forget,
President Hua.
I've been the vice president of the
Xingxian
Li
smiled
Corporation for
flatteringly.
more than 10
But
years.
President Hua,
When Manager
Qinghui was
Zhang mentions
embarrassed
it,
for a moment.
can you seriously
He
consider
nodded
it?
and looked a little
I can guarantee
uncomfortable.
that our company's products are
You've been in this
absolutely high
position
quality
for more than 10
and the
years.
prices are
Li
absolutely
Qianxue
reasonable.
didn't want to say
All
more
right, I
and turned to
understand.
leave.
However,
Hu Jinyao had
Su
an appointment
Qinghui
with
stood
someone
in front
today,
of her again,
so he really didn't have time to talk to
go
He
see
Xingxian
Yusin?
here.
Li Qianxue took
Go
a
do
deep
what you
breath
need to
and
do.
looked at him with a sharp
He
gaze.
Xingxian very sensibly
Yusin is
stood
your
aside,
son, and the
I won't
smile
stop
on
you
his
from
face
seeing
became
him.
even brighter.
Not only Yusin,
he didn't
but
return
also
to the private
Qingxing.
room until Hu
I won't
Jinyao's
stop you
figure
from seeing
disappeared
him.
in the private
one
room
thing
at
is,
the
they're
other
all
end of the
grown up.
corridor. They're not
Although
children
Hu Jinyao
anymore.
didn't give him
How
a
they
definite
treat you
answer,
is their business.
being able to see
I
Hu
won't
Jinyao
participate
today was
and
enough
I
to
won't
make Hu
interfere.
Xingxian happy.
Seeing that
So
Su
when he
Qinghui
faced
obviously
Su
wanted to
again,
speak, the
Li
smile on
Qianxue
his
took a
face
big step
became more
back.
sincere.
She raised the
Mr.
document
He
and put it between the two of them.
The resistance on her face
Su
was
Peijian,
too
of
obvious,
course,
and
knew
Su
Hu
Qinghui
Jinyao,
felt more
but she
and
still
more
wanted to
uncomfortable.
clarify.
He thought for
Who
a
was
long
that
time.
person just now?
He couldn't say the
Is he your
last
friend?
word of what he
Why
wanted
don't
to
you
say.
invite him in for
In
dinner?
the end, he could
He
only
Xingxian
say
looked at Su
Qianxue
Peijian
as
as
if she
goodbye.
was an idiot. If there's
President
a chance,
Su,
let me
you
see
can
you
tell
again.
that he is a newcomer,
Let's start
right?
over. I'll pursue you
Why
again.
you say that, Mr.
I'll
He?
treat you well.
Do you know
Can
who
I?
that person is?
Li Qianxue
You
felt
said that
it
you
was
want to invite
ironic.
him to dinner?
Su
Let
Qinghui
me
was
tell
getting
you,
older
even if
and
the mayor
more
of
and more
Rome
pretentious.
City
wants to invite him
Su
to dinner.
Qinghui.
He has to see
Goodbye.
if he's in a good mood.
She dropped these
Would
5
you do me
words
the
lightly.
honor? Her goodbye
Really?
and his goodbye
Su
were
Peijian
obviously not the
pretended to
same
be
thing.
surprised,
Li
and her
Qianxue
eyes
turned
widened.
around and walked
That
out
good?
of Su
Of
Qinghui's
course.
office in
He
her
is the
exquisite
president
high
of
heels.
Tianyu Group.
The moment
I
the
have
door
never had the
closed,
chance
Li
to meet him in
Qianxue's
person.
eyes turned red.
If it weren't for a distant
Goodbye,
cousin of
never
mine
again.
who works in Tianyu Group
The
and
tears
found a
she
way
had
to
shed
help
for
me
that
get in
man,
touch with a
the
department
suffering she
manager,
had suffered for
I
that
wouldn't
man,
even be able
the
to enter
foolishness
Tianyu
she had
Group.
made for that man,
Seeing that
all
Su
of them were
Peijian
goodbye
wanted to
now.
listen,
She was still young, only in her 40s. That
She
person
wanted to
just
start
now
over,
is the
leave
president
that
of
man
Tianyu
behind,
Group,
Hu
and live her
Jinyao.
own life.
He is the eldest
When
grandson
Su
of the
Qingxiang
Hua
received
family,
Li
the most
Qianxue's
powerful
call,
family
she had just
in
come
Rome
out of
City.
an internship surgery.
He has always been
Why did she
low-key
say
and
rarely
internship?
appears in public?
She had just come
If
here
I didn't
and
have
was
the
not
chance to
familiar
meet him
with the
before,
staff
I
arranged
wouldn't
in
have
the
met
operating
him.
theater.
So,
These
Mr.
all
He,
took time
you
to
are
understand
really
and
amazing.
adapt.
Coincidentally,
smile was
Sun
even
Huya
brighter
had
than
a surgery
before,
today,
but there was
so
a
she
hint
went
of
into
calculation
observe.
in her eyes.
After coming out of the
I
operating
really didn't
theater,
know that
Su
Mr. He had such
Qingxiang looked at
connections.
Sun Huya. Next time,
Director
I
Sun,
really need to
your
learn more
technique
from
just
Mr.
now
He.
was really
Being
amazing.
praised by a beauty
No wonder
like
when I
Su
came
Peijian,
here,
Teacher
He
Zhang
Xingxian
told me to
suddenly
learn
felt
more
a
from
little
you.
smug.
Although
Previously,
Sun
because
Huya
of
and
Xiang
Zhang Qiubai were
Kaiping, he agreed
classmates,
to sell
there
some
were many
products to them
patients
at
in
a
the
low
hospital
price.
here, and there
Later,
were many
when
surgeries
Xiang
arranged.
Kaiping quit, he
After so many
regretted it.
surgeries,
That was
her
why he
skills
wanted
were
to take this
naturally better
opportunity
than
to
Zhang
raise the
Qiubai's.
price.
All right, he didn't expect
praise
Su
me.
Peijian
Asian to be
Old
so
Zhang
tactful.
isn't bad either.
Mr.
Didn't
He
he
let me
also
propose
teach the
such an
toast to you?
outstanding student
As
like
Su
you?
Peixian spoke,
Sun
he
Huixing
still
still
liked
poured
a
Su
glass of
Qing
wine,
sang and was willing
as
to
the
teach
other
her
party
more.
drank.
If
He
you really
Xixian
praise
spoke
me,
without
then
a
learn
trace.
well. This
Mr.
is your
He,
world in
are
the
you
future.
familiar with this President Hua?
Su
I'm not
Qing
familiar
nodded.
with him.
I'll go
He
take notes now.
didn't dare to use
Seeing
Hu
Su
Jinyao's name
Qing
outside.
run away,
Sun
the Hua
Huiya
family
couldn't
wasn't
help but
something
laugh.
he could afford
This
to offend.
child. She
But
had
who
some
in
of
Rong
old
Zhang's
Zhang's diligence
know
back
about
then.
Tianyu Group?
She was a
Even
good
in the whole
seedling.
country,
There
Su
are
Qing
very
sang
few
was taking
people who
notes
don't
of
know
today's
about it.
surgery when Li
Only
Qianxue
people like you
called.
don't know about it.
That's
Su
true.
Qing was a
How
little
can our knowledge
surprised to
compare to
receive Li
Mr. He's?
Qianxue's call.
Su
They had just
Peixian
spoken
poured
on the
another
phone
glass
last
of wine
night.
for He Xixian.
Yes, this was
Why
also
don't you tell me
something
about
that
it,
Li
Mr.
Qianxue
He?
had to do
Let
when
me
she
tell
went
you,
back.
this Tianyu
She had
Group,
to video
it's
call
very
every night.
powerful.
He
Xixian wasn't
Are you at
bragging.
work?
However,
Yes.
what he knew about
Mom,
Tianyu Group
are you
was
busy right
superficial.
now?
Nothing, I just already knew what he was talking about when she was at her phone and sensitively noticed she was still listening attentively, a little depressed as on the other end of the phone. She nodded in admiration. Then I'll video call you when I get home tonight. Finished, she looked at him casually. Then you go ahead. I'll call you again tonight. The next time you meet President Hua, Sang was about to hang up when she suddenly seemed to have thought of something and said, Mom, if something happens, don't think too much. Just think about me and then think about 490. You don't only have me, got up you in the also morning. Have Yusin. Su Sang turned over in bed. They would stand behind Li Qianxue and support her. Li Qianxue didn't expect to hear like Su Sang's comfort. He reached out and her eyes became a little wet for a moment. You're not getting up? You child, I'm not getting up. What nonsense are you talking about? Su Sang sounded I'm not sleepy. Thinking too much. She was on the night shift last night, and it was already late wasn't as calm as she appeared. It just so happened that Hui Jinyao had a business meeting yesterday and came back around the same time as her. He had always been very restrained when socializing outside, but it was inevitable that he would drink a little. Certificate in front of her, influence picked up the red wine on the side, the two of them fooled around and began to drink. Su Sang didn't have to go to work today, 2 sips, so she didn't want to get up so early by tears. Hui Jinyao, no matter how calm she was, who was wrapped in a relationship of more than 20 years was enough to make her want to die. He leaned over and kissed her on the forehead, digging out the rotten flesh on her heart without anesthesia. Remember to get up for dinner later. But if she didn't dig it out, is the not good for your health. Would continue to corrode inside. Su Sang and she was afraid that it would be even more painful in the future. But as soon as she closed her eyes, it was actually quite good like this. She opened them again. At least after this pain, she wouldn't be in pain again in the future. I'm not going to work today. Su Chinghui, how about I go see Grandpa? She finally broke up with him and had nothing to do with him from now on. Lu Tongjia had done last week. About affecting me in the slightest. Tell that he was probably unhappy. When Su Sang finished her work at night and went home to video call Li Qianxue anymore, she had already calmed down. To explain to him. Li Qianxue was such a person. By the bed and looked even at her. If she was riddled with holes on the inside and gently stroked her cheek, she would still make herself really bright and beautiful and smooth. This was her pride. In some ways, Su Sang turned her face to the side to avoid his hand. Su Sang told Li Qianxue about her work in the past few days. What do you think we should give her? Sensing that Li Qianxue wasn't in a good mood in the afternoon, he naturally didn't lack anything. Su Sang tried her best to cheer Li Qianxue wanted to make the old man happy. After being coaxed like this, of course, Li Qianxue didn't feel down anymore. After chatting with her daughter for a long time, she finally told Su Sang about her divorce with Su Chinghui. In fact, he was also one of the people who didn't want to have children. 484. He hadn't thought about becoming a father at such a young age, although she already knew about this. Thought too highly but when she heard it out of the blue, she was a little surprised. Instigated it. She thought the kind of person who would listen to a woman's encouragement. No matter what. Su Chinghui did the same thing to Old Master Hua. A divorce agreement. Although Old Master Hua still remembered the way he didn't mention it again after hearing the reason. At that time, therefore, she had a very subtle feeling. Really didn't need to think about these things anymore. Did he agree? Don't think too much. Yes. I'm going to work. I signed it this morning, and the paperwork will be done this afternoon. He said so, but Su Ching Sang couldn't just let it go. She was talking about someone else's business. Old Master Hua's attitude toward her since she came to Rome City. Face on the screen. Since Hui Jinyao didn't want to tell her, but relieved. She would think about what to give in his heart. Su Ching Sang rarely picked out gifts for her elders. It seemed like it was all her misconception earlier. To Su Chinghui. Maybe Su Chinghui didn't love Li Qianxue, but he didn't want to give up his identity as the son-in-law of the Li family. Li Qianxue couldn't wait to give her the best. Even Xiang Kaiping didn't know what to give Old Master. You don't have to think about the moment. I'm just telling you. Su Ching Sang felt a little conflicted. Even if he divorced me, after leaving the department store, he unknowingly walked to a small road behind to decide how you want to treat him in the future. When she came back to her senses and wanted to retreat, she said she seemed to hear something in the alley beside years. Su Chinghui had never done anything for her 2 children, so she quickened her steps and was about to walk outside. He only had superficial feelings for the remaining 2 children out at this time. Since that was the case, there were 2 men. It was understandable that Su Ching Sang, the moment he saw Yusin, did not want to acknowledge him as their father when they grew up. His sharp eyes startled Su Ching Sang. Li Qianxue would not make decisions for the children. They were all grown up and had their own behind the bald man. She would not impose her own thoughts on them. The good young man who did what was right, Su Ching Sang found Li Qianxue was also surprised to see, but on the other hand, she felt helpless. He didn't understand why she was no longer a child. He glanced at the man with the crew cut. She hadn't been signaled him to go first for so many years. The man looked at Zhang Yichen and was concerned about Su Chinghui. She wouldn't really dwell on it too much. Su Ching Sang hurriedly raised 3 fingers and said, "Over the past few months, got here. She had gained a better understanding of Su Yusin's to cover up something only made it more obvious. He was afraid that Su Yusin would not be able to get over this so easily. The man with the crew cut became even more worried and took a step you and Dad. Zhang Yichen patted him on the shoulder and he will always be my dad. She really didn't hear it. The man with the crew cut obviously didn't agree with Zhang Yichen's words, but he didn't think too much about it. He had done so many wrong things, but look at his children. His eyes were full of warning, which made the little father-son relationship they had with him. Then he turned around and left. Apart from Su patted her chest, was there anyone else in Zhang Yichen's face? She trembled again. Comforted Li Qinxue with her body against the wall behind her. Seeing that Li Qinxue really February didn't seem to be in trouble, the temperature was very low. She put down the phone and heard voices outside. She thought of the few times she had seen Zhang Yichen before, and he had been nice to her, but that was because he did good things. However, had a business meeting that night, in this world so he didn't come home for wouldn't do bad things. Looking at Su Qing on the sofa and pulled her onto his lap took when she approached forward and stood in front of Su Qing. The person Hu Jinyao asked the weekend and the weather was still had arrived today. There weren't many people in this alley. Cooking. Su Qing was a part-time helper that Zhang Yichen stood in front of her. From a dozen or so domestic helpers. Well, it was fine. I really didn't hear what you said. Cook once in a while. It was a beautiful misunderstanding. But how could Hu Jinyao bear to let her cook all the time? Su Qing wanted to explain more, bad, but Zhang Yichen raised his hand and rubbed her face against his chest. Startled. She closed her eyes to look at her. Then she realized that something was to notice that her emotions quickly opened her eyes. What's wrong? Yichen's hand was placed on the wall beside her. It has nothing to do with you. You didn't hear me? Su Qing believed that she couldn't hide this matter. Didn't hear him. Hu Jinyao would find out very sooner or later. Su Qing told him about Li Qinxue and Su Qinghui's divorce. I didn't expect that my judgment would be after hearing someone approaching. She thought that Su Qinghui had feelings for Li Qinxue, couldn't have heard anything. But now it seemed that she had thought looking at the woman in front of him, who was no longer calm but he said, and composed like she was in the hospital. I think this matter may not be as you think. The woman in front of him was quite interested. Her head. Su, you may not know my mother well. I've lived with her for so many years in the hospital, although I wasn't familiar with him to know her name. There are some things that I can still see. This made Su Qing even more scared. Personality was extreme. I really didn't hear what you said. Or hated someone. She tried to calm herself down. The contract today, she knew that some perverts would get more excited when they saw others together in the future. Can I trouble you to move aside for a moment? And pinched her face. Zhang Yichen didn't move. He pinched a little hard. He stared at and her face turned red, and suddenly she was a little annoyed and slapped the back of his hand more and more nervous. What are you doing? Zhang Yichen's face was getting bigger and bigger in front of her. Hu Jinyao rubbed her blushing face but raise her hand to slap him. His clear voice sounded a little helpless. Was caught in midair. You're already an adult, and your brother is also growing up. But also, even if your parents get divorced, she couldn't break free. Don't you think you're worrying too much? Moved closer to her face again. Su Qing pursed her lips. Su Qing was she didn't feel tired, but she was a little getting bigger and bigger in front of her. She wanted to raise her other hand. Can't make mistakes as long as they're unfortunately, she was caught by him again. Makes a mistake, there's no chance to redeem it. With both of her wrists in his hands, thought of Su Qinghui and actually felt quite speechless about his father-in-law. Looking at her surroundings, that depends on what kind of mistake going out alone today. Her phone rang. Not all mistakes in this world are worth forgiving. She wanted to answer the phone, of course, but the man was still holding her hand. What he said made sense. She tried a few more times, but she was still depressed. But she couldn't break free no matter how hard she tried. I didn't think much of it before, but recently I've started to feel that my father is quite pitiful. You better let go of me. There must be something hateful about a pitiful person. Who could he blame for his powerful in Rong City? Su Qing suddenly glared at Hu Jinyao. Dared to do anything, I think you're quite that Hu Jinyao wouldn't go easy on him. I'm not gloating. Really? I'm sobering up. Zhang Yichen was about to let go. He held Su Qing's hand. He just wanted to scare the woman very seriously. However, think about it. Her words made him tighten his grip on her hand. Isn't it a tragedy that he was about to live until he knows what's most important to him? You're not someone I can afford to offend. If he were a smart person, he would have known what was most important to him earlier. Clenched her teeth. Then he wouldn't have ended up like he did today because he had helped her twice in a row. Of the Li family to an ordinary person with nothing. Anyway, the gap between them was not small. Yes, Su Qinghui's biggest mistake was probably that he had never seriously thought about what was most important to him and what he wanted to keep the most. Yes, ordinary people couldn't afford to offend Tianyu Group. But how many people in this world could understand what they wanted from the beginning? Tianyu Group. Many people often lived in a daze for their whole lives and still didn't understand what they wanted. If the man was a criminal or a bad person, he wouldn't be afraid of her at all. He's already an adult. Let him worry about his own things. She wanted to pull her hand out, but she found that the man was using his strength very skillfully. Take action. She couldn't feel any pain, he was still young. She couldn't break free. If he didn't take action, he was afraid that both of them would regret this life. She calmed down. If Su Qinghui didn't have feelings for Li Qianxue and
what do you
only
think
wanted
about
the
this?
benefits brought by the
Go
Li
ahead.
family and the
You
Li
guys
family,
are doing this
then
kind
it would
of
be good
business.
for them to divorce. Su
Either
Qingsang
way,
thought for a
it
while
shouldn't
and
be
then
something
thought
that
of the
Su
word
Qingsang
business.
as a daughter
Her
should
voice
care
became
about.
softer.
I know.
It's for money.
She was just a
Let
little
go of me
emotional.
first. If
You can
Su
make
Qinghui
any
could wake up a
conditions you
few
want.
years ago,
Isn't
he
this
wouldn't easier
the
than
arm
doing
around her
anything
waist
to me
tightened?
directly? Su
How do I know
Qingsang was
that you
caught
won't
off
call the
guard and
police
fell
after
into
you
Huo
agreed
Jinyao's
to my
chest.
conditions?
What do you think?
Qingsang clenched her teeth.
Huo Jinyao dragged
I'm in
the
your
last
hands
word.
now. How
Su
can I call the
Qingsang
police?
obviously knew that.
That's not necessarily
She patted
true.
him on the shoulder and said,
Zhang Yichen
"Stop
stared
it.
at her face.
My relatives are here."
For example,
Huo
you said you were
Jinyao's
going
hand,
to transfer
which was
money
about
to me,
to act
but when you
presumptuously,
arrived at the
suddenly
bank,
stopped
you called
moving.
the police?
He looked
What
at
do you
Su
want then?
Qingsang with extreme
Su
depression.
Qingsang was angry.
Isn't it a few days?
Do you want to kill me?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Maybe it was because
Zhang
of the
Yichen
change
looked
of
at Su
environment and
Qingsang
place
with a mischievous
early
look in
this
his
time.
eyes.
Huo
Su
Jinyao took a
Qingsang
deep
had a
breath,
bad feeling.
buried his face
The next
in
second,
Su
the
Qingsang's
man
neck
moved
and
his
rubbed
face
it closer to hers.
All right.
Su
Go take a
Qingsang
shower.
was scared. Huo Jinyao
She
didn't
thought
take
that
a
he was
shower
going to
as
do
she
something
thought.
to her.
Instead,
However,
he reached
he
out
only
and
hugged
hugged
her
his
waist
face
tightly.
about 5
Su
centimeters away
Qingsang
from
was
hers.
stunned for a moment.
He stared at her
She
face.
seemed to have only
His
just
eyes
realized
slightly
that
dim.
Huo Jinyao was a
Woman,
little strange
curiosity
today.
killed the
Since
cat.
he came in,
Don't
she
be
had
so
been the one
curious
saying
next
that he was
time.
caring about
Su
her feelings.
Qingsang didn't dare to
However,
move.
she seemed
Looking
to have
at the
realized
face
that
so
Huo
close to
Jinyao
hers,
didn't seem to
she
be
had
in a
the
good
urge
mood
to
either.
slap him.
What happened?
Zhang Yichen
It's
stared
nothing.
at Su
Huo
Qingsang's red
Jinyao
lips.
voice was a little
For a
low.
moment, he really
I just
wanted
want
to
to
kiss
hug
her.
you.
He didn't
However,
say anything,
he didn't like to molest
so
women.
Su Qingsang didn't
He took a
ask.
step back and
She
let
put
go
her
of her
arms
hand.
around his back and slightly tightened her grip. This movement allowed her to hear his extremely regular heartbeat.
Under
She
Su
put her ear
Qingsang's
against
guarded
it and
gaze,
spoke in a
Zhang
very low
Yichen
voice.
slightly curled up the
Huo
corners of his
Jinyao,
mouth.
if you have anything
There was
to
a
say,
hint of
you can tell
playfulness
me.
in his eyes.
Although I don't know
Then he
much
took a
about
big
the company,
step back.
I will listen.
But he didn't leave in a hurry.
Su
Su
Qingsang
Qingsang
rubbed his
also
forehead
knew that
and
she
looked
was
at
no
the
match for
serious
him.
expression
Her
on
body
Su
was pressed
Qingsang's
against the
face.
wall, and her hair was a bit messy.
He smiled and
Zhang
leaned over to
Yichen
kiss the corner
subconsciously
of her
raised
lips.
his hand, wanting to
Su
fix her
Qingsang
hair,
slowly
but when
got
he saw
used
the
to the
guarded
work in the
look on her
hospital,
face, so
he
there was
subtly
nothing she was
withdrew his hand.
unfamiliar with.
He gave Su
After following
Qingsang
a
a
deep
deep
look
look
to an
then
operation,
turned around and left.
she began to be the
Su
chief surgeon for the
Qingsang kept looking
subsequent
at the
small
man,
operations.
afraid that he would come
Later
back
on,
to his
she
senses
began to
and try to
participate
hurt
in
her.
the major
But
operations.
now she could see it. Su
The man
Qingsang
probably
slowly
knew that she
became
didn't
busy.
hear anything.
Not
and
only
he was
did she
just
have to
trying to
work
scare
during
her.
the day,
But she
fortunately,
also had
the
to be
man
on
didn't
duty
really
at night.
do anything
The
to
night
her,
shift was
or she would have
divided into the
died.
night shift
The cell
and the
phone
night
rang
shift.
again.
The night
Su
shift was
Qingsang's
fine
breath
because
was
she could
still
go
a bit
home
unstable
after
when
only
she picked
staying
it up.
for the first half of the
Qingsang?
night.
What's
However,
wrong?
the night shift
was
meant that she had to
Mengwan
stay
on
in
the
the
other end
hospital
of the
for the
line.
whole night. I'm fine.
Su Qingsang wasn't
Su
unaccustomed
Qingsang shook
to
her
it.
head.
Huo
After
Jinyao
making
was a
sure
little
that the man
distressed
wouldn't
that
come
she
back,
was overly
she turned
involved
around
in her
and
work.
walked out. But as long
You
as
sound
it
a
was
bit out
what
of
she
breath.
wanted, he didn't
Are you
stop
really
her.
okay?
However, he often
No,
asked
I
Ms.
just
Yu to
ran
make
into
some
a dog
delicious
and was
food
scared.
or stew some
Sure,
nourishing
Mengwan didn't
soup.
ask further.
However,
She
on the
actually
weekends,
wanted to talk
Huo
to Su
Jinyao would bring
Qingsang about
Su
something.
Qingsang back
But
to
when
the
the
Huo
call was
family's
connected,
old mansion.
she didn't know what to
Old
say.
Master Huo was old,
Oh,
so
you
he
rarely
liked to be
call me when I'm at
lively
work.
and crowded.
What's wrong?
Usually,
What's
the Huo
wrong?
family would be more
Qingsang
crowded on Friday
Thinking
night.
of Zhan Haoze,
Other than Huo
Shi
Mengwan's
Mengwan
family,
was a bit confused.
there was also Huo Mingliang
Nothing.
and Huo
I might
Mingmei's
want to come to
family.
Rong City
The
to hang out with
atmosphere
you.
at the dining
I
table
want to
was
ask if you
very
welcome me.
lively. Huo
Of course
Mingmei
you're
had been
welcome.
humiliated by
Su
Li
Qingsang
Qingsang
couldn't be
before,
happier.
so she was very
Okay,
unhappy.
I'll see if I'm
Now
free
that
in the
she
next
saw
few
Su
days.
Qingsang,
I'll arrange
that
the time.
unhappiness surfaced
Okay.
again.
Su
Speaking of
Qingsang
which,
didn't think
Su
much of it.
Qingsang had been
You're
in
free to
Rong
work
City
anyway.
for more than half
Call
a month.
me when you're coming.
This was
and
the
I'll
first
pick you
time
up
she
then.
had eaten with them
Okay.
since she started
Shi
working.
Mengwan said a
Because
few more
last
words,
Friday,
but didn't
Su
tell Su
Qingsang had
Qingsang what
kindly
was on
gone
her
to
mind.
work for a colleague
Never
in their
mind,
department.
she talk about it when they
Therefore,
met.
Su
Throwing
Qingsang
the
wasn't
phone
at the
aside,
party last
Shi
Friday.
Mengwan only
Today,
felt
they
that her
bumped
mood
into
didn't
each other.
improve because of
When
the phone
Huo
call.
Mingmei saw Su
Instead,
Qingsang,
she felt
she
even
thought
more
of how Li
confused.
Qianxue had
What had gotten into her head yesterday, and the smile on her face became a little fierce. He clearly refused to admit that he was her dear brother. He clearly had a fiancé. Hua Jingyao scooped a bowl of soup for Su Qingsang. Do you want to be a mistress? He had specially asked Aunt Zhou to make this anything. Su Qingsang had been so busy recently that she had dark circles encountering Zhang Haoze recently seemed to be a little high for her. That was not a good thing. She thought that she needed to go to Rong City to find Su Qingsang. She was too embarrassed to show off her love in front of so many people, she needed to calm down. Especially when her cold-faced mother-in-law figure flashed across her mind. Was sitting across from her. Mingwan's heart wasn't just filled with the sweetness in front of her expressionlessly. There was even more bitterness. It was as if she didn't see it. Her big brother would probably never come back. Couldn't help but glance at Su Qingsang and clicked her tongue. Su Qingsang looked at the Land Rover parked in front of her and blinked. Has changed a lot. He turned to look at the person in the driver's seat suspiciously. He really cares about his wife. She reached out to open the car door. Change. Didn't you drive this car this morning? Su Chingsang's bowl as if nothing had happened. Paid much attention to enjoyment. Of course he should care about his wife. There were many cars in the garage. Just like how Uncle loves and very much. Driving a Bentley or a Mercedes. Isn't that right? There were also sports cars. Expression but changed, and she drove them to the company. This Land Rover was daughter of old Master Hua's favorite and the whole family had more sons than daughters. He went to work. She was doted on by everyone. To the mansion for him. Not to mention, he'll come for dinner tonight, and I can drive the car back then. He didn't have a daughter. Uncle? She was the only girl in the Hua family. The youngest son of the great aunt. She had been spoiled by her father and brother since she was a child. Mentioned when he introduced his family to her. She had a bad temper. You're not talking about that. She was also obsessed with Wei Nantian, yes, who was inferior to the Hua family. He went to his company to look for him at noon. The Wei family was good in a hurry, but it was nothing compared to the Hua family. He left his car at his company because of the Hua family to drive it back to the old mansion for him. Had also improved a lot. His eyes fell on Su Chingsang's hand. They naturally didn't have to worry about other women trying to use this relationship to climb in her hand, which was covered with a cloth. A secretary of Wei Nantian had other ideas. Parrot. She pretended to be pitiful and weak, then which made Wei Nantian feel pity that you're going to give this to Grandpa. Hua Mingmei suppressed it and didn't make a fool of herself. Looked at him with excitement, but it wasn't a good thing. I walked in the department store all day today, but I didn't see anything to give to Grandpa. Later, I passed by the flower and bird market, and I thought it would be good to give him a parrot. This is the best one in the shop owner's shop. With an innocent look. It can talk a lot. Hua Mingmei almost fainted from anger. I've tried it, and it can talk to people. Su Chingsang and said, "You're often away from home." He was right. Isn't it good to give it to Grandpa? A good kid. In my opinion, the men of the Hua family are all affectionate. Su Chingsang's hair. It's really a blessing for Chingsang to marry you. As he looked at her. Auntie is wrong. Honey, I think it's my good fortune to be able to marry her. Was messed up by him. Hua Jinyao didn't forget to glance at him and said, "Just tell me if Grandpa will like it." His eyes were full of love. He'll definitely like it. Felt her teeth after Hua Jinyao said that, he laughed again. There was no reason for her to put down her status why he was angry with a junior like this. Hua Jinyao, however, stop laughing. She really couldn't calm down. If you don't think Grandpa will like it, family style was considered strict. This bird was not cheap. It cost her tens of thousands of yuan to Hua Mingguang and his brother. Stopped laughing. There were private disputes. He reached out and put his arm around men and women. They were very scrupulous. He leaned over and kissed her on the lips. He had chosen his own wife. And he treated his wife with great respect and care. She didn't plan to have a child so early. Not only old Master Hua's family, she bought a bird for young Master family, and even Hua Yangxiu's family with the Sang had a feeling that he was laughing at her. She was married to Wei Nantian. Stop joking. And Wei Nantian treated her well. Not like it? At least for the sake of the Hua family, he would respect her. Hua Jinyao stopped laughing. No one was as considerate and considerate as Hua Mingguang was to Lu Tongjia. Or as protective as Hua Jinyao was to Su Qing and said, "Honey, not to mention what had happened realized before. That I'm really It was lucky. Inevitable that she couldn't hold her head high in front of her parents." Su Chingsang looked at him. She wanted to say more, but she instinctively felt that he was being sarcastic. Began to tug at her sleeve again. The Hua family's when she looked up again, she found that old Master Hua's face was a little gloomy. When she entered the door, she was a little nervous. She could show off in the Wei family only because of her parents. Hua Jinyao put his arm around her shoulder and said, "Don't worry, her good days would come to an end. Definitely like it." With that in mind, Su Chingsang was talking about what she had just said. But after Hua Jinyao's joke, she began to feel nervous. Didn't seem to see what was happening. Hua was sitting on the contrary, reading the newspaper with his reading glasses on. The show was not enough because of Hua Mingmei's weak fighting ability. Jinyao, all right, all of you are blessed. He saw the bird cage covered with a cloth to a chubby boy. Hand then your grandfather will be happy. What is this? It would be a great blessing to have 4 generations under one birdcage. Old Looking at old like to hear this, even if she felt that it was inappropriate and became more and more peaceful. Grandpa, Hua Mingmei felt indignant because I passed by the flower and bird market today. As she glanced at Su Chingsang's belly, she took off the cloth on the birdcage. And Jinyao there was a red for more than half a year parrot inside. Why hasn't there been any news beautiful? Do you not plan to have children? Or I think it's quite interesting. Of course I plan to have children. It's a gift for you. Immediately you can play with it if you're free. After Su Chingsang finished speaking, he gave her a look. She found that old Master Hua was looking at her with a strange expression. From God. She was nervous. It hasn't come yet. She couldn't help but look at Hua Jinyao. When it's the right time, it will come. Pressed into a straight line. More, what he didn't say was that they had only been married for half a year. Su Chingsang many people have been married for more than a year or even several years and hadn't had children. This bird can really talk a lot. Hua Mingmei's lips moved, and it's all auspicious words. Master Hua glared at her. She picked up the bird food that the shop owner gave her and put some in the cage. His expression was still kind. Say something. Chingsang, the parrot was completely different from before. Although I want to have great grandchildren, it turned its head and ignored Su Chingsang. Very few elders would say such kind words to their juniors. The birdcage, especially to a family like the Hua family. The bird didn't even turn its head and didn't look at Su Qing at all. Biased. But the more he was speaking, she remembered that the parrot had a name. Hui Yifeng slightly narrowed his eyes, as if thinking of something. The bird's name lowered his head and didn't say anything. Su Qing thought for a while before she remembered. Su Qing was not someone she could afford to offend. She was still a little drunk when she saw that an outsider like her grandfather liked her so much. They felt that old Master Hua was biased, but Su Qing felt even more uncomfortable because of his strange smiles on their faces. Speaking of which, she really didn't plan to have children in a short period of time. But looking at old Master Hua like this, she always felt that she was lying on her face was which made her very uncomfortable and half embarrassed. This mood lasted until the evening. To see her like that. This week, he put his hand on had been on duty for a few days, and her period had come. If it can't talk, been intimate with her for a few days. It doesn't matter. As soon as he held her in his arms, he noticed that she was not in a good mood. It can really talk. What's wrong? Su Qing looked at him and didn't know what to say. Argue with Su Qing. After thinking about it, she told him the truth. He had a feeling that why do I feel that I'm a little sorry for Grandpa? Su Qing originally wanted to give old Master Hua a surprise, and he wants to have great-grandchildren. She didn't expect that the surprise would be gone and it would become a joke. Don't worry, Grandpa is just down. If you really don't have children, also held back his laughter, not wanting to embarrass Su Qing she was serious. If it can't she wasn't a person who couldn't tell good from bad. Take it down. Old Master Hua had been protecting her since she entered the Hua family. Su Qing, although she hadn't known him for a long time, she really knew that old Master Hua truly loved her and Hua Jin. Uncle Qing came in and saw she lied to old Master Hua for a moment, which made her feel understand why there was a bird cage. Hua Jin hadn't realized that Su Qing was to the back garden and find a place to hang it. Now that he saw it, he actually felt that it was quite fun. Su Qing thought about the precautions that the boss won't mind. Hua Jinyao was afraid that she wouldn't believe him, careful and was a little jealous. Grandpa is not young anymore. To feed it. His health isn't as good as it used to be. Such a stupid bird. But other than his blood pressure being a little high, he doesn't have any other problem for a few days to make his wife so embarrassed. But who knew that the parrot, then let me ask you, do you want to have children now? You're stupid. Looked into her eyes and asked very seriously. Old Master Hua and the others were all stunned by the sudden voice, and there was a hint of hesitation on her beautiful face. That the bird would speak after struggling for nearly a minute. Didn't seem to be convinced. She shook her head and kept shouting, "You're stupid. You're stupid. Don't be angry." Su Qing didn't care that it was scolding her. I really don't want to have children now. Master Hua as if she was asking her work had just improved. Grandpa. It was time for her to show off her skills. Even the shadow in her heart hadn't been completely eliminated. This granddaughter-in-law was really too interesting. Hua Jinyao held her waist in his arms, also lowered his head, and kissed her face. Blushed because of their laughter. I've said it before. She stood behind Hua Jinyao embarrassedly and didn't speak. This is your right. You don't have to worry about it. Why is it so lively? If you think you're not ready, then we'll wait for you to be ready. Familiar. In her eyes, these were big things, but in his eyes, they were small things. More importantly, Hua Jinyao wasn't ready yet. Chapter 492. He didn't know how to be a good father. Old Master Hua was so happy about the gift that she had always known that Hua Jinyao was handsome. The smile on his face grew brighter. She felt that he was tall and powerful in her heart. He was like a mountain that she could rely on. Zhang Yichen walked up to old Master Hua and kissed his lips. Uncle, and at the same time, she put her hands around his neck. Energetic. It was an extremely rare experience for Hua Jinyao to have his wife take the initiative up and down. It was also very interesting to let the other party take the initiative occasionally. The muscles and tall figure that he had trained in the army were clearly different from ordinary people. It was rare for his wife to take the initiative. The last time your mother came, you didn't come with her. He had to take the opportunity to fight for more rights for himself. I won't join in the fun with naturally, was filled with red waves and boundless. He saw the parrot and the person standing beside it. The next day was Saturday. His expression froze for a moment, rarely had a rest today. Swept over. Although she was tortured by Hua Jinyao yesterday. Hua Jinyao was standing usually next to Su as long as she was at the Hua family. He was taller than Su go downstairs to accompany old most of her body. The weather stood in front of Hua Jinyao warmed up yet. He could see clearly. Old Master Hua's health wasn't very good, but he still wore a cotton-tied answer in his heart, practiced but he couldn't help but ask again. Su Qing put on a down jacket and followed him out to stand beside him. Qing, this is the uncle I told you about. Morning. He was Zhang Yichen, old Master Hua, the youngest son of her great aunt. Su Qing don't be fooled by his young age. He smiled at her and said, he's already a senior colonel. So much? How do you practice boxing? The smile on Su Qing's face was a little style. She had never thought that she would run into Zhang Yichen again at the as she spoke. Right after meeting him in the afternoon and said, "What was even more unexpected was that he was Hu Jinyao's uncle. Let me see." Thinking of what he had done to her in the afternoon, which had almost been flirting with her limbs and then began to practice. Suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. Looked at her and nodded repeatedly. After the initial shock, not bad. Zhang Yichen quickly composed himself and reached out his hand to Su Qingsang. The movements are correct, as if he were seeing her for the first time. As Su Qingsang spoke, she learned the new movements from old Master Hua. Su Qingsang had to shake his hand. Old Master Hua pointed out her shortcomings and said that she didn't have enough strength to be rough. Her punches really didn't have much strength. Only held it for less than a second before quickly retracting her hand. Physical strength was too good. Zhang Yichen glanced at her again because of her movement that she could get up in the morning. I didn't come to Jinyao's after practicing boxing. I came in a hurry today. Old Master Hua into the house. A greeting gift. Aunt Zhou had already prepared breakfast. Uncle is too polite. Su Qingsang and Old Master Hua went to their respective these empty formalities and then went downstairs again. He was such a young man, however, but he had to call him she uncle. Came down, in terms of seniority, he was sitting there with a cold face. When she sang, felt a little uncomfortable thinking about what Hu Jinyao had done in the afternoon. Was stunned for a moment, but one thing was clear. Looked at the other party was a soldier, who was sitting opposite, so he was probably on a mission in the afternoon that he couldn't let her know. Hu Jinyao shook his head at her. The unhappiness and fear calmed down and thought that Hu Jinyao meant that it was okay. However, she didn't know that Hu Jinyao also didn't know what Lu Tongjia was going to do. From this angle, cold outside, he could only see and the water in the pool was frozen. Lips. He wanted to swim. Thinking about the two of them being so close to each other in the afternoon, he went to the gym for a while. He felt his throat tighten. When he came back after a shower, he found then at Old Master sitting on the sofa in the living room with a cold face. You haven't told me what you were laughing about. When she saw him, she asked him to sit down. Old Master therefore recalled the situation just now. Tongjia wanted to do. A faint smile appeared on his wrinkled face, who was sitting next to Lu Tongjia. Is filial to me and bought a parrot to keep me company. If you have something to make it talk, just say it. The parrot didn't know what was going on. Tone was calm. After Zhang Yichen came in, he hadn't been close to his mother since a long time ago. Old Master today was Saturday, to talk to but it didn't mean that he had nothing to do. Chung to take the parrot away, looked upstairs and said, "Don't rush," signaling him to sit down until everyone is here before we talk. Very much. As she spoke, Zhang Yichen had been in the army most of the time. He would come to see him whenever he was in Rome uncomfortable. I heard was about to ask that you've been promoted to senior colonel. But Su Qingsang I haven't congratulated you yet. Had already come there aren't many senior colonels. Why are you all sitting here? There aren't Don't you many, want breakfast? But it's not like there aren't Master any. Hua looked at his daughter-in-law's they have to respect my father, and was a little so unhappy. It's not a big deal. It was a weekend. You don't and it was rare for the old man to see his grandchildren and daughter-in-law back. They still need you to make contributions. Face. You can only be promoted if you make contributions. Didn't come for him. It was enough to make old Master Hua unhappy. Su Qingsang looked at Zhang Yichen, but I have to make it clear now. He had acted bravely for a just cause. Lu Tongjia stood up and walked over to help old Master Hua. So the unhappiness in the afternoon was gone. He wasn't that weak yet. At dinner, sitting down on the sofa, Zhang Yichen to sit next to him. Voice was very soft. Hu Jinyao sat down between Zhang Yichen and Su Qingsang. Lu Tongjia was about to speak, seemed to be close to Zhang Yichen. Sitting with Hu Jinyao, the dissatisfaction in her eyes became more intense. However, they talked about not only was old Master Hua looking at her, when Aunt Zhou brought the soup to the table looking at her, Hu Jinyao habitually didn't understand what she wanted to say. Dad. This soup is very turned her eyes back Aunt to old made it especially for you. Speaking of which, should drink more. I have seen how you have treated Jinyao all these years. Were already numb to the fact that the two of them would show off their affection whenever they were having dinner. As the eldest grandson of the Hua family, twitched a little. Hu Jinyao had been smart and handsomely made for Su Qingsang. He was Aunt Zhou had made it because she hadn't been in good spirits these days. He had almost never done anything that people would find fault with. She wanted to say something, but she chose to stay silent when she saw Zhang Yichen. Chapter 486 didn't say anything either, not to mention the fact that Hu Jinyao had married a daughter-in-law that she didn't like. Zhang Yichen was the only one who had never seen that had happened after the marriage. He sat next to Hu Jinyao and watched him fill family background bowl with soup and she didn't like her bowl. This illegitimate was the Hu Jinyao he had never seen before, and this was the Su Qingsang he had never seen before. With a father like that, he remembered the cunning look on Su Qingsang's face when she faced the blackmailers to make Hu Jinyao marry her. Lu Tongjia didn't like Su Qingsang because of Hu Jinyao. She used to ask him if he was being blackmailed again when he sent the family to the hospital. I always said that you spoiled him. And this afternoon, you didn't believe me. Scared, but now he's getting older and he's getting more and more out of control. Expression. She said all this, beat faster, but didn't say what Hu Jinyao had done. He lowered his head no matter how patient old Master Hua was. He was running out of patience. He clearly knew that she was his niece-in-law. But in those few short meetings, he could not get her image out of his mind. Looked at Lu Tongjia. How long can you stay in Rome City this time? Lu Tongjia was going to make a fuss about Zhang Yichen back to his senses. Fortunately, he had told his grandfather about it. Then stay at home. He wasn't afraid that his grandfather would be unhappy. Zhang Yichen wanted to refuse, but he saw Su Qingsheng. What did it have to do with Su Qing's bowl with her chopsticks? Dad. Surprisingly, he didn't object. What Hu Mingmei had said to her last night, very happy, and her lips curled into a mocking smile. To clean up the room. Don't feel uncomfortable about what I'm going to say and found that Hu Jinyao hadn't returned to his room. Hu Jinyao with dissatisfaction and found that he didn't answer. Look at Jinyao. She looked at the time. What did you say yesterday? Put on her coat and went downstairs. This child is a gift from God. After asking Uncle Cheng, from God. Su Qingsheng finally thought that he wanted to have a chubby boy to satisfy your wish to have a great grandson. But now I realize that it's a gift from God. It turns out that he never intended to have a child. Half of it was filled with all kinds of fitness equipment. Both looked at the other half was covered with thick mats. And Su Qingsheng. It looked like it was for yoga at the same time. Su Qingsheng pushed the door open and saw Hu Jinyao and Zhang Yichen fighting in the open space that she thought was for yoga and told me something. It could be seen that the two of them were just that they were using contraception and not really fighting. Lu Tongjia sneered and stared at martial arts, and so was Hu Jinyao. Is this how you fool your elders for quite a while? Is this how you treat your grandfather who loves you so much? To attack Hu Jinyao with his halberd. Lu Tongjia changed his style, not to mention old Master Hu Jinyao changed his style. It was one thing to dislike Hu Jinyao, didn't know how to fight, but it was another thing to want a grandson. Zhang Yichen was better than Hu Jinyao. Rome City who were the same age as Hu Jinyao were already in kindergarten. He was knocked to the ground. Unfortunately, the men in their family all married by Zhang Yichen. Hu Jinyao got married at the age of 30, which was not early. I'm not good at martial arts, but he was good. Zhang Yichen stood up and reached out a hand to Hu Jinyao to help him. But on the other hand, you haven't been training lately or have children at all. Yes. What is this? Hu Jinyao didn't deny it, but inwardly I have a lot of things to do in the company. That was why Lu Tongjia didn't like him. Training in the military camp and another set to the back. How can I be compared? Thinking of what he had done in the past, panted, her voice became even Yichen's chest. Damn you. If you really don't want to give birth, hard, just say so. It hurts like hell. Why would he lie to us? He felt that Zhang Yichen wasn't fighting with all his strength very loud before. Considering that there were servants working in the corner of his outside, he saw her voice was very soft. He immediately became everyone alert. In the living room could hear her clearly. He quickly walked up to Su Qingsheng's face darkened, grabbed her hand and said, also looked at Hu Jinyao. I've gone too far. His eyes full of disapproval. It hurts like hell. Sitting there, Su Qingsheng gave Zhang Yichen very uncomfortable being stared at by the elders. She looked at Hu Jinyao with concern. She didn't expect that Lu Tongjia would know about it. She already felt a little guilty about old Master Hua, and now she didn't know what to say. Think it was embarrassing feeling to guilty, act pitiful she was a in front of his wife and uncomfortable. He pointed at several places on his body, squeezed her palm to reassure her. Was about to lift up Hu Jinyao's shirt saying not be worried, but she stopped when she looked at him again, and Hu Jinyao squeezed her palm to the room. Their actions didn't escape Lu Tongjia's eyes. Hu Jinyao was satisfied she only felt the anger in her heart grow. He didn't care that Zhang Yichen was still there. To talk about he leaned over and kissed looking at the blame in the eyes of the three elders. In the past, he pursed his lips. Had shown affection I don't want to have children, but because I'm not ready to be a father. When Zhang Yichen You're not ready to be a father. Let's go. You don't want to apply the ointment, do you? Are you not ready? Yes, of course. Or is she not ready? Hu Jinyao turned around and waved at Zhang Yichen. Hu Jinyao didn't mind letting Lu Tongjia know. Again next time. Mom, it's my decision not to have children as a greeting. You don't have to drag Hu Jinyao into this. Zhang Yichen stood there motionlessly. Did he think she was blind? Floated in the air. Couldn't she see the little action between the two of them just now? He saw that Su Qingsheng had obviously just taken a shower. The ends of her hair were slightly wet, and there was a light fragrance of shower gel on her body. And looked at Hu Jinyao. Even though she had left, the smell still lingered in the air. But what did you tell your grandfather yesterday? Zhang Yichen stood there motionlessly. Sat there without saying a word. In a military camp. He was old, and he didn't know when he would pass away. There were no other women around him. His wife looked very healthy and sister. But who knew that she would pass away so with the army didn't count? He thought that his body was healthy. Most of the women in the military camp were less feminine and didn't know how much time they had left. He didn't have much contact with women to get married a few years ago, but he didn't expect that they would become like this. So he naturally hoped that he could have children soon. Fortunately, he could see the fourth generation of the Hua family before he closed his eyes. When Su Qingsheng went upstairs, however, she found that Hu Jinyao's body was do such a thing. His not only did old Master Hua look serious, but the skin under his clothes was extremely unhappy because of what Hu Jinyao had done. The place where he didn't want to have children, but he did such a little thing behind his back. Looking at
because
the more than
in your
one
hearts,
bruise, we are the kind of rude and unreasonable
and
parents?
dissatisfied.
Unreasonable?
Uncle,
Aren't you
Lu
being too
Tongjia
reckless?
said coldly.
He's a soldier,
She was obviously
so his
stamina
stamina
must
must
be
be
better.
better with their behavior.
How could he be so cruel?
You are the younger generation.
He knew that Hu Jingyao
if you have
couldn't beat
anything
him,
to say,
but he didn't
you can
go
talk
easy
to the
on him.
elders. It was
But
too
you?
much.
This time,
Honey, I'm
Hu
fine.
Jingyao didn't say
Hu
anything,
Jingyao
and
liked
Su
to see
Qing
Su
also
Qing
lowered
worried
her
about
head
him.
and didn't speak.
He didn't take much advantage of me. In
I'm
fact,
telling you,
although
he must
Lu
be injured
Tongjia's
too.
tone wasn't very good.
No matter
what
how
she
injured
said was
he is,
indeed
he's
reasonable.
not as bad as you.
Lu Tongjia looked at
Su
Su
Qing
Qing, looked at the two
face and
bruises
changed
on
the
Hu
topic.
Jinyao's stomach.
You said it has
She
nothing
felt
to do with her.
distressed. Do you think
Go
I'm
take a
stupid?
shower.
To put
I'll
it
get the
bluntly,
medicine.
she just doesn't
I'm
want to have
fine.
children.
Hu
Isn't that
Jingyao
right?
didn't care at all.
Seeing that Hu
It's just a
Jingyao
minor
wanted to say
injury.
something,
It'll
she glared
disappear
at him.
tomorrow.
Don't
No.
always speak for her.
Su Qing
She's
felt
already
the
an
pain
adult
just by looking at
Can't
it.
she even speak?
Go take a shower.
Su Qing sang,
I'll ask
tell me
Uncle
now.
Cheng to get the
Who
medicine.
on earth doesn't want to have
Hu
children?
Jingyao couldn't argue with
Su Qing
sang looked at Lu
so he went to
Tongjia
take a
and
shower.
then at Old Master
When he
Hua.
came out, her
Su
face was a
Qing
little
sang
pale.
was already waiting
When
by
she
the
saw
bed
the
with the
disapproval
medicine.
in Old Master
After the
Hua's
shower,
eyes,
she found
she
that the
lowered her
bruise on
head
his
guiltily.
waist looked even
Grandpa,
darker.
I'm
The
sorry.
pain in Su
Lu
Qing's
Tongjia
eyes
looked
became
at
more
Old Master
obvious.
Hua.
Dad,
Why
did you suddenly
that?
think of
Since
fighting with
things
your
had come
uncle
to
out of
this,
nowhere?
what else was
I
there
told
to
you
ask?
it's not a fight.
Isn't it obvious?
It's a friendly match.
Old Master Hua didn't
Su
speak,
Qing sang
and
didn't want to
Huamingguang's
argue with
face
him.
didn't look good
In
either.
her opinion,
Hu Jingyao
fighting
looked
and
at
friendly
Su
matches
Qing's
were the
face
same
and reached
The
out to
heater
hold her
was on
hand
in the
tightly.
room.
Hu
Mom,
Jingyao
you don't
was
have to do
bare-chested,
this.
letting Su
Qing
Qing
is still young
apply the
this year.
medicine for him.
We really aren't
Su
ready.
Qing sang poured out the
Besides,
medicine.
what's wrong with
As
having
soon as it
children a
touched
few
Hu
years
Jingyao,
later?
he
I
cried
didn't
out
marry
in pain.
Qing Sang just to
I'll
let her
just-
have children for
You
me.
deserve it.
You're in the
Su
right.
Qing Sang glared
Lu
at him,
Tongjia was
but
so
her hands
angry
were
that
much
she
lighter.
laughed.
I'll
She's
let you
young,
continue
but are we
the friendly
young?
matches
You
next
really
time.
didn't marry her
You don't
to
know.
let her have children
Ichin
for
and
you.
I have always
So
been
you
like
can
this.
lie to us like this,
In front
right?
of Old Master
This
Hua
isn't a
and the
lie,
elders,
is it?
Hu Jingyao
At best,
called
it's a
Zhang
white
Yichen
lie.
uncle.
When
They
we're
had a
ready,
good
we'll
relationship
have
in
children
private,
when we want
so
to.
Hu Jingyao
Why are
always
you
called
in such a
Zhang
hurry?
Yichen by his name.
Yes,
Hu
we'll have
Jingyao
children
winked
when
and
we
asked
want to.
Su Qing
By the
Sang
time
to
you
apply
want
the
to, your
medicine.
father and I
Su
might have
Qing
already.
Sang rolled her eyes
Enough.
at him. Old Master Hua
serious.
scolded. Hu
Lu
Jingyao
Tongjia
thought of
didn't
the
finish
time
the
when he
words
joined
she
the
wanted
army.
to say.
Do you
When
know?
she met Old
I had
Master
been
Hua's
in my
eyes,
great aunt's
she shut
army
up in
with my
embarrassment
uncle at
and
the time.
didn't finish the
In
words.
terms of skill,
Su
I
Qing
admit that I
Sang
am
and Hu
inferior to
Jingyao
him.
both lowered their
For
heads
someone
at
like
this
Zhang
time,
Yichen,
looking a
who
little
trained
guilty.
every day,
Old Master
to
Hua
rise from
looked
a
at his
common
beloved
soldier to a
grandson in
senior
front of
colonel
him
in just
and
over
then
a
at Su
decade,
Qing
that
Sang,
wasn't
who was
something an
satisfied
ordinary
with him.
person could do.
He sighed in his
If
heart.
he performs another
I'm old.
meritorious deed,
What I say
he'll be
doesn't matter
promoted
anymore.
again.
I don't
So,
blame you
honey,
for not respecting
it's not
me.
that I can't beat him.
Grandpa, it's because
Su
he's
Qing
too
Sang
powerful.
was really
The
embarrassed
fate
by
between
Old
people
Master
was
Hua's
also
words.
strange.
Not only
Old
her,
Master Hua
but
was
even
not
Hu
the only
Jingyao
one
looked
who liked
anxious.
Zhang Yichen. He looked at Old Master Hua and wanted to say something, but his
Stop.
relationship with Hui
Do whatever
Yifan
you
and
want.
Wei Sihai was
Old
even
Master
better
Hua
than with
stood
Hui
up and
Yifan
glanced
and
at
Wei
Hu Jingyao.
Sihai. His
Yes,
eyes
yes,
were
yes.
full of disappointment.
Su Qing Sang
Grandpa
couldn't help but increase
Su
the
Qing
strength of her
saw his
hand when
eyes
she
and
saw that he
suddenly
was still
became
joking
anxious.
when he was injured.
She suddenly stood
Seeing
up and
Hu
wanted to
Jinyao's
explain
facial
to Hu
features
Jingyao.
scrunched together.
Old Master
She seemed
Hua
to be
waved his
satisfied.
hand, but he didn't
I know
want to
you can
listen
do it.
anymore. You don't
You
have
guys
to
go
explain. I'll go back
It
to my
wasn't
room.
like she hadn't seen videos
Grandpa,
of soldiers
Old
training
Master
in the
Hua
army.
refused to
Hu
say anything
Jingyao,
else.
who stayed
He
in
turned
the office
around and
and
went
went
upstairs.
Couldn't compare
The
with someone who
atmosphere
came
in the
from
living
that
room
kind of place.
suddenly became cold.
Honey,
Hu
Jingyao
Jingyao
stood
was
up
afraid
and wanted
that
to go
Su Qing
upstairs
Sang
to
wouldn't
see
believe
Old
him.
Master Hua.
I'm serious.
Huamingguang stopped
Zhang
him.
Yichen is
Sit
so
down.
powerful because he comes from a different family.
Su Qing Sang
If I
and
were
Hu
in the
Jingyao
army,
sat down.
I'd be better than
Both
him.
of them didn't look
I
good.
wouldn't be beaten by him.
Especially Su Qing
Do you believe
Sang.
me? She really
Yes, yes,
blamed
yes.
herself
I'll
at this
believe
time.
whatever you say.
Old Master
It was
Hua was an
obvious that she
extremely
didn't believe him.
open-minded person.
How could Hu
If she
Jingyao
and
let
Hu
his wife
Jingyao
think
didn't
of
want
him
to have
like that?
children, they
After
could have
he
told
finished
him
applying
directly.
the ointment,
It was
he put
really
the
not
ointment
good to be
on
like
her
this.
hand aside.
He turned
what I
over
said
and
work?
pressed Su Qing Sang on the bed,
Huamingguang saw that Hu Jinyao was standing still, and his voice became a little narrowed. His star-like eyes, he rarely spoke to Jinyao in such a harsh tone. It was also the first time that Su Qingsang saw her father-in-law get angry. What are you washing? Just apply it on me later to sit down. Su Qingsang almost laughed at Jinyao and wasn't in a hurry to speak. Soon she couldn't laugh anymore. Instead, he called the housekeeper, Uncle Qingsang, and asked him to personally bring breakfast upstairs to if she hadn't had to work today. Uncle Cheng had been the housekeeper of the whole family for decades. Su Qingsang hurriedly put on her clothes and went downstairs. Uncle Cheng didn't hear the argument in the living room just now, but it didn't stop him from knowing that the owner was in a bad mood. Su Qingsang yawned. After agreeing, he left. She didn't pay attention to her feet and accidentally stepped on something. Not only did old Master Hua like when she came back to her senses, but he was also immediately tried to grab the handrail. He would never have said such satisfaction in front of Jinyao after what had happened before. She was about to fall, many years, but a pair of big hands to be a little discouraged by Hu Jingyao. They took her away from the edge of the stairs and put her in a bigger space around the corner. Outstanding. Su Qingsang steadied herself. She patted her chest with lingering fear. 487. When she saw the muscular chest in front of her, she suddenly realized what was going on. But he sounded disappointed. Was working out in the gym downstairs. The mistake he made when he was young was holding her now because he was looking young at Zhang Yichen's thick eyebrows and big eyes. But now he was an adult. She said uncomfortably, a 30-year-old person should be able to understand things, right? Zhang Yichen looked at Su Qingsang. Do you think that no one in this family is worthy of your trust? He was as tall as Hu Jingyao. Do you think that no one in this family is reasonable? Pale face, he felt that he had pulled his hand back too quickly. Sneered. Watch where you're going. Your mother is strict with you, but is that the reason you respect us? She was a little uncomfortable with Zhang Yichen's lecture. Hu Jingyao might have she had never made a mistake like this, but he respected his father and grandpa from the bottom of his heart. She took a step back and wanted to continue walking downstairs. If you didn't, would you fool your grandpa like that? You know that he's wanted you to marry him for so many years. And you know that he's wanted to have a great grandson for so many years. Did she want to fall again? Is this how you repay him? Thank you. Hu Jingyao was silent for a few seconds and then said, Dad, she took a step to the side to make sure that she was safe. You know whether you did or did hand. You're old now, and you have your own ideas. You don't have to listen to the elders. He subconsciously tightened his lips together. His eyes never left Su looked at him worried face. She put her hand on the back of his hand and signaled him to stop talking. Su Qingsang didn't say anything to him. I think you've been too busy lately. She turned around and went downstairs. Let Yifeng take care of the Ike's cooperation case. She lowered her head and stared at the stairs. Hu Jingyao suddenly raised his head and looked at to go downstairs. So he followed Su Qingsang. Do you know what you're talking about? Su Qingsang wanted to walk faster, but she felt that it would be too deliberate. I believe he can do it. She might as well walk like this. You should spend more time with your grandpa. She was so focused on the stairs that she didn't notice that Zhang Yichen was very tall and there was a trace of sarcasm in his eyes. Because of this, he could easily see the marks on her neck from his angle. Even though he wasn't experienced, he could tell that it was a CEO. The marks on the back of her neck could only have been left by Hu Jingyao. Hu Mingguang was angered by his eyes darkened again because of this annoying thing. Don't forget that the Hua family doesn't belong to you alone. At the end of the stairs on the second floor, it doesn't even belong to me alone. Watch the scene. I'm the chairman now. She clenched her fists so hard. I have the right to arrange your work. Zhang Yichen was nothing more than the eldest son of the family. Therefore, he would stay at the whole mansion for those 3 days. Group would be handed over to him after Hu Jingyao drove to pick Su Qingsang up every day and drove her for more than an hour back to the whole mansion. It was founded by the third day happened to be a Saturday. As old master was other child didn't have to go to work. Was also a part of it. She woke up early in the morning and practiced Tai Chi with old things to happen just because they didn't want to have a child so soon. She had become good at it. She was also stunned for a moment. She didn't use much strength. She turned to look at Hu Jingyao with obvious worry that she ate too little. But now that she needed to eat more and Lu Tongjiao were here, she didn't even know what to say to comfort him. That I don't eat enough. Hu Jingyao stood up. Compared to other people, I eat a lot. He looked at Lu Tongjia and Hua Mingguang. You need to be fatter. Finally, he turned to look at Lu Tongjia. Was a little unhappy before. This is what you want, but after hearing his grandson's explanation, he didn't care about his anger anymore. This was the first step. He knew that Hu Jingyao didn't get along with his mother. Hu Jingyao didn't want to have children in Tianyu Group. However, Lu Tongjia blamed over Tianyu Group to Hu Yifeng. Old master Hu was old. What kind of attitude is that? To keep the family together. Lu Tongjia was angered by about these small things anymore. You lied to your elders and played us around. Could say anything. You're still in the right. She heard, Grandpa, Grandpa from the eaves and I just don't want to have children at this stage. From before, but it doesn't mean that we didn't want to have children in the future. Arrived. Mom, in the past you really 2 days, don't have to overreact. No one had talked to it. Is this a matter of whether you have children or not? Laughed again. This is a matter of the two of you not lying to your elders and trying to fool us. To give him a parrot. Lu Tongjia glared at Hu Jingyao. A little noisy. I never care about the company's affairs. Was worried that she had been fooled and that the bird didn't know how to talk. I think it's a good decision now. It seemed that she had been acting more and more out of control recently. I think it's time for you to calm down and made the smile on even if your grandfather was here a little. I believe he would agree. She turned around, Hu Jingyao clenched his fists nodded so tightly that blue veins popped out on the back of his hands. Looking at the stern look on Lu Tongjia's face, she took a step forward and hooked her arm around his. The Ike's cooperation finished working out? No problem. I'll go to the company the day after tomorrow and hand it over to him with love in his eyes. But Dad, tell me what else you want to give to them. It's better to make it clear at once. The way Hu Jingyao called Hu Jingyao to hand it over right and left clearly separated them into 2 different generations. At first. But now, he was a little angry because of Hu Jinyao's words, then turned to old master Hu Jingyao. Uncle,
do you think
what
I
were
want
you
to take
talking
away
about?
your power?
Why did you
Do you
sound
think
so
I want to
happy?
drive you away
I was
from
talking
Tianyan?
about this bird.
Let me tell you,
It's noisy.
I really just want you to
Old
spend
Master
more
Hua
time
thought
with your
the parrot
grandfather.
was quite funny.
If you keep doing
You're
this,
noisy.
I really don't
You're
mind
noisy.
letting you have more
The
free
bird
time.
usually stayed in
Hua
the flower
Mingguang
and
never
bird
thought
shop.
that one day
It
he
had been
would fight
trained
with his
by the
son like
owner
this.
to be very
He
smart.
didn't expect that
Now
Hua
it was
Jingyao
quarreling
would
with
think of
people
him
like this.
Su Qing
This
Sang
realization
couldn't help
made
but
him
want to laugh.
so angry that his
However,
whole body
because
began
Zhang
to
Yichen
tremble.
was standing next to
You
her,
hurt your
she
grandfather's
stopped
heart
laughing.
like this.
Hua Jingyao
Don't you want to
couldn't
spend
help
more
but
time
raise
with
his
him?
hand to rub
No
the
one
top of her
forced
head.
Su Qing Sang
It
to have
knows how to
children.
quarrel with
The
people.
men of the Hua
I don't
family
know.
married late.
Su
But
Qing
no
Sang
one
looked
urged
at the bird
Hua Jingyao
hanging
to
under
get
the
married.
eaves and thought
He
it was
chose
quite
to get
funny.
married, and he agreed
Anyway,
to have children.
when I tease it, it
Therefore,
doesn't talk.
he couldn't blame
But when
his
someone
elders for being
scolds it,
angry
it
now
gets
that he was
excited.
pretending to be
Seems
obedient.
like it's a
Hua
stupid bird.
Jingyao's body
Hua
stood there
Jingyao gave the
motionless,
bird a
looking
stare
a little
as he
stiff.
spoke. Su Qing
Stupid
Sang
bird.
didn't expect
As
things to
expected,
develop to this
the
point.
parrot suddenly
She
became
gently
angry.
touched Hua Jingyao's
It
hand
fluttered
in
and
the
turned to
cage
face
and
Hua
said,
Mingguang.
"You're stupid.
You're
I'm
stupid.
sorry. I'm the one
Ha.
who started all
This
this."
time,
Both
I didn't
Old
want to have
Master
children.
Hua and Hua Jingyao laughed.
just
The
enough.
corners of Zhang Yichen's
Lu
mouth
Tongjiao
turned
was
up
annoyed
a little.
to see Su
He turned
Qing
to look
Sang.
at Su Qing Sang.
Stop talking.
With this,
Don't
uncle,
I know that
you
you
won't be
caused
lonely
this?
anymore. I don't know what you
Nice
did to
gift,
coax Jingyao into
niece-in-law.
marrying you. Now you coaxed him to the point that he doesn't even want to have children. Su Qing Sang,
Chapter
you're really
494.
well educated.
Ignoring Zhang
She admitted
Yichen,
that Su Qing Sang
didn't
only had
handle this
eyes
matter
for
well,
Hua Jingyao, but she didn't understand
Jingyao,
what Let's
Lu
Go Eat
Tongjiao was talking
I'm
about.
hungry. Hua Jingyao
Just as she was
greeted
about
old
to ask
Master
Lu
Hua and
Tongjiao
Zhang
what she
Yichen,
meant,
then
Hua
put his arm
Jingyao
around
pulled
Su
her
Qing
over.
Sang's waist
Mom,
and
you
walked
don't
to
have
the
to say
dining
it.
room. Qing
Zhang
Sang
Yichen
doesn't need
turned
to
around
coax
to
me.
help old
I
Master
didn't
Hua.
want children. Uncle, let's go eat too. I really didn't know that our Hua
Old
family
Master
had
Hua
a
didn't
lover.
think too much.
Lu Tongjiao
The two
was
of them
furious.
followed
Su Qing Sang
She stood
and
up
Hua
and
Jingyao.
said,
Since you
Su
have
Qing
so
Sang
many
was
ideas,
talking to Hua
then you
Jingyao
too
in
can
a
go
low
live your
voice.
own lives. The parrot had
We
made a
elders
lot
don't
of jokes
care
about
about
you
you
any
anymore.
few days. Lu
She had wanted
Tongjiao
to
was
buy it to
really
say
angry
something
this time.
auspicious.
It was completely
However,
different
it
from the
refused
past
to say
when she was
anything
just
auspicious
unhappy
and was
said
very
a few
good at
words.
quarreling.
She got
She
up
didn't
and left.
expect it to do that.
Hua Mingguang didn't
She even
stay
felt
and stood up
embarrassed.
as well. Hua Jingyao
Before
thought
leaving,
it was funny.
he gave Hua Jingyao
It was fun
a
to have a
cold
bird
look,
like that,
with a hint of
Zhang Yichen
disappointment
helped
in his
old
eyes.
Master Hua up and
Suddenly,
talked to him,
only
but his
Su
eyes
Qing
were
Sang
fixed
and
on
Hua
Su
Jingyao
Qing
were
Sang.
left in the living
He
room.
also saw the
Su
faint
Qing
smile
Sang
on her
didn't
face
expect
when she
things
talked
to
to
turn
Hua
out like
Jingyao.
this.
She
She
wasn't
turned to
stunning,
look at Hua
but her
Jingyao
eyes
with
were
worry
full
in
of
her
flirtatious
eyes.
charm. Jingyao
Zhang
look,
Yichen
it's
saw the
okay.
flirtatious
Hua
charm
Jingyao didn't
unintentionally.
expect the elders
There
to
was
have
a
such a
faint
big
flame
reaction.
dancing in his eyes.
He patted Su Qing
However,
Sang on the
that
shoulder
ball
and
of
said,
flame was
"Don't
quickly
worry,
suppressed by
it's
him.
really okay." Zhang
I'll
Yichen
explain
only
it to
stayed at the
Grandpa
Hua
later.
mansion for 3 days,
Old Master
then
Hua
went
wasn't
back to the
an
army.
unreasonable person.
After Su
It
Qing
was
Sang
always
found
okay
out who
to
he was,
explain it to
she
him.
turned the matter over.
Su Qing Sang
She
bit
would
her
just
lip,
treat the
feeling that
previous
it wouldn't
small
be so
conflict as
easy
an
to get over it.
unintentional act
Hua
by the other
Jingyao
party.
raised his hand
She
and
didn't
gently
take it
flicked her
seriously.
forehead.
So,
That's
when she
enough.
got off work,
Leave it to me.
she was surprised
You don't
to
have
see
to worry
Zhang
about
Yichen
it.
suddenly
Hua
appear in
Jingyao.
front of her office.
Should I tell Grandpa
It was already
myself?
time to get off work,
You tell
and
him
the other
yourself?
doctors had left.
Do you want to have a baby
There were
now?
still 2 doctors
Su
on
Qing
duty
Sang
in the
blinked her
office.
eyes and
When
finally
Su
shook
Qing
her
Sang
head
saw
firmly.
him, she called
Then
him
it's
uncle.
settled.
The
Don't
other
worry.
2 doctors
Leave it to
didn't
me.
pay attention
I'll
to
take
her.
care of it. What's
Su
up,
Qing Sang
Uncle?
didn't mention
Su
it again
Qing Sang
after
looked
he
at
said
Zhang
that.
Yichen and
Hua
knew that he
Jingyao
had
and
something
Su
to say.
Qing Sang were the
She
only
picked up her
ones
bag
eating
and stood
breakfast that
outside
day.
the office.
It was a lot quieter.
You're off work?
After breakfast, Hua Jingyao
That's
went
good.
upstairs
Come
to
with
talk
me.
to old Master
Zhang
Hua.
Yichen was about
Su
to take
Qing
Su
Sang didn't know what
Sang's
he
hand
said
when he spoke,
but old Master
She
Hua
quickly
went
stepped
downstairs
back and
for
looked at
lunch.
Zhang Yichen.
Although he didn't
Her
look
eyes
very
full
good,
of disapproval.
at least he didn't look as
Uncle,
bad as he
what's
did
the
in the
matter?
morning.
I.
Su Qing Sang
Zhang
wanted to
Yichen
say
looked
something
around,
to old Master
thought for
Hua
a moment,
several times,
then added,
but in the end,
"Can you come
she
with me
didn't.
now?
The atmosphere
ask
in the
for your
Hua
help?
family was still a bit
Tell me what's the
depressing
matter
that weekend.
first."
Su
Zhang
Qing Sang
Yichen's
thought
voice
about it
was
for
soft,
a day and
but he
decided to
sounded
let it go.
anxious. Some things
urgent.
would take their
I
natural
need a
course.
doctor.
As
Now,
for
right
the
now,
baby, she would
Su
wait until she
Qing-sang
was
looked at
ready
him
to have
from head
another
to toe.
one. Only
On
then
one
did
side
she
of Hu
notice
Jinyao's
that there seemed to be
office
some
stood a small team of people
inconspicuous
who worked with him.
bloodstains on his black
They were
coat.
the employees in
Those
charge of Ike's
bloodstains
this
were
time.
very familiar
On
to
the
her.
other side
Her
stood Hu
expression
Yifan.
suddenly became
He looked at Hu
serious.
Jinyao,
Do
who
you
was
need
sitting
tools?
behind the desk.
His
Zhang
face was
Yichen
calm,
nodded, but deep in his
Can you
eyes,
hurry up?
there was a trace
Wait
of
for me.
excitement and joy.
She went to the pharmacy,
Brother,
bought some
Hu
medicine
Yifan
and
didn't call him
bandages,
president
and
but
returned to
brother.
her office to
He
get
did
a
that
full
on
set of
purpose today.
scalpels.
I
She
heard
moved
from
quickly,
Uncle that you were
spending
going to
less
hand
than
over
10
the Ike's
minutes.
case to me?
Yes.
Hu Jinyao saw
She
the
followed
smug look in Hu
Zhang Yichen out of
Yifan's
the
eyes,
hospital and
but
got
he didn't
into
argue
Zhang
with him.
Yichen's car.
He turned
After
to look
she
at
got
the
in the
people
car,
standing on
he
the other
quickly
side.
stepped on the accelerator and sped away.
Su Qing-sang wasn't used to the speed, but she didn't say anything. She just looked at the scenery outside. In less than 5 minutes, Zhang Yichen and Su Qing-sang arrived at an inconspicuous apartment. The apartment was old, and the walls on both sides were mottled. Su Qingsang hesitated at the scene. Looking at Zhang Yichen's serious face, she followed him upstairs and entered the door. Almost as soon as she entered the door, she smelled blood. "Save him, hurry up." A man was lying on the bed in the room. Su Qingsang recognized him immediately. He was the man with the crew cut, whom she met in the alley last time. He was shot 3 times. 1 in the arm, 1 in the abdomen, and 1 in the leg. "Why didn't you send him to the hospital?" Su Qingsang asked. She walked up to the man and started to check his wounds. "We can't send him to the hospital." Zhang Yichen didn't explain further. Su Qingsang glanced at him, but didn't say anything. She focused on the man in front of her, who was covered in blood. The wounds on the arm and leg didn't look serious, but the one in the abdomen looked the most serious. The man was lucky. He had lost so much blood and been shot 3 times, but he was still alive. "I wanted to take the bullet out for him, but the bullet went in too deep. I was afraid that I might lose control." The wound was in the abdomen, and it was all internal organs. Zhang Yichen was afraid that he might accidentally cause a second injury, so he asked Su Qingsang for help. "I've already helped him deal with it first. I just bandaged the wound a little. But I need you to take the bullet out." "Got it." Su Qingsang didn't waste any more time. Although she was an obstetrician, she was familiar with stitching wounds. She took off her coat and put it outside, then put all the tools she brought with her on the side of the bed. She bent down, cut open the man's clothes, and started to treat his wound. When she was treating him, she realized that the anesthesia she brought with her was useless. The man had already fainted because of the excessive blood loss. It was fine without anesthesia. He was shot in the abdomen. Fortunately, his internal organs weren't injured. Otherwise, Su Qingsang wouldn't have dared to treat him like this. The bullet barely grazed the man's stomach, almost causing it to perforate. Su Qingsang couldn't help but feel that the man was lucky. She had no time to care about anything else. She quickly took the bullet out of the man's leg, then the bullet in his arm. She took one and stitched the other. She didn't dare to delay. She was afraid that the man would die of blood loss because of her hesitation. Su Qingsang had been a doctor for so many years, and she had stitched the stomach of pregnant women the most. It was her first time stitching a man's stomach. Although it was fresh, she didn't dare to relax at all. Nearly 2 hours later, Su Qingsang finally finished treating all the wounds on the man's arm. After tying the bandage on the man's arm, Su Qingsang felt that her leg was a little numb when she stood up. It was such a cold day, and there was no heater in the room. Her back was covered with a thin layer of sweat. When she stood up, she saw Zhang Yichen, who had been waiting at the door. Su Qingsang's voice was very soft. "It's done for now." "For now?" Zhang Yichen glanced at his comrade on the bed, whose face was still pale. "What do you mean?" "He lost so much blood. Normally he needs a blood transfusion. But you refused to send him to the hospital. Although I treated him in time, it was still very dangerous tonight. We need to watch him and make sure that he will wake up tomorrow morning. Then he will be fine." To be honest, the man had been shot 3 times and lost so much blood, but he was still alive. His vitality was quite strong. "Thank you." Zhang Yichen understood. What happened next had nothing to do with Su Qingsang. He looked at the man and said, "I will take care of him." Su Qingsang nodded. She moved her limbs, and when she met Zhang Yichen's eyes, she put her hands down uncomfortably. "Then, if there's nothing else, I'll leave now." "I'll drive you." "No need." Su Qingsang glanced at the man on the bed. "You should take care of him. I'll just take a taxi back myself." After all, the man was seriously injured, and there was no blood transfusion. Su Qingsang wasn't 100% sure that he would be fine. Oh, he lost too much blood. He might have a fever in the middle of the night. Remember, don't let him have a fever. If you really can't control it, wipe his body with alcohol. She had brought alcohol with her to disinfect the wound, so there was still a lot left. She could give it to Zhang Yichen. "I got it. Thank you." Zhang Yichen thanked her with sincerity. He looked completely different from when he teased her in the alley. Su Qingsang felt a little uncomfortable. She walked out of the room, picked up her bag and left. "If there's nothing else,
I'm leaving. Don't you need to deal with it? Zhang Yichen glanced at her. She had been treating the man's wound, so her clothes were stained with blood. It wasn't a good idea to run out like this. It's okay. I have a coat. Su Qingsang put on her coat as she spoke. In this way, he really couldn't tell. Zhang Yichen didn't say anything. When Su Qingsang's hand touched the doorknob, he called her back again. Su Qingsang. Yes. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. Don't worry. I'm not that talkative. No, I'm also talking about Jin Yao. Don't tell him. Su Qingsang turned to look at Zhang Yichen. When she saw the seriousness in his eyes, she nodded. And, thank you. You're welcome. Although Su Qingsang didn't know what they were doing, she could guess a little. Since they wanted to keep it a secret, she wouldn't tell anyone. After leaving the apartment, Su Qingsang stood at the door and looked around. She took a turn and then left the alley. When Su Qingsang got home, Hu Jinyao was already there. He had obviously just taken a shower, and the ends of his hair were still wet. He was sitting on the bed reading a book. When he saw Su Qingsang come in, he put the book aside. His eyes fell on the bags in Su Qingsang's hands. You went shopping? Su Qingsang nodded and put down the bags. Did you call me? I was shopping and didn't hear you. I just saw you in the elevator. Have you eaten? Hu Jinyao got off the bed and walked to Su Qingsang. He noticed that she had changed her clothes. She wasn't wearing the clothes she had worn this morning. I've eaten. As Su Qingsang spoke, she picked up the bag by her feet and took out a Versace casual suit. It was dark striped and made of sapphire blue material. She compared it to Hu Jinyao and said, "Try it on." Chapter 495. He looked at her inquisitively, but Su Qingsang didn't seem to notice it. She said calmly, I saw this suit on you when I was shopping, so I bought it. Su Qingsang wanted to go home after coming out of Zhang Yichen's apartment, but she thought of the blood stains on her clothes, so she decided to buy a new set of clothes. After buying the suit for herself, Su Qingsang passed by Versace and happened to see the casual suit in the display window. The style, the design, and the color made Su Qingsang think it looked good. She didn't know much about brands, but she knew that almost all of Hu Jinyao's clothes were high-end. But that didn't stop her from buying the suit for Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao looked at the eagerness in her eyes, put on the suit, and joked with Su Qingsang. You're unaccountably solicitous. Honey, did you do something wrong to me? Su Qingsang reached out and grabbed the front of Hu Jinyao's shirt. Yeah, I did something wrong to you. I went on a date with a man just now. I was afraid that you would find out, so I bought the suit to please you. Was he the only one who could talk nonsense? So could she. Hu Jinyao stopped putting on the suit, leaned over, and stared at Su Qingsang's face. Are you angry? I was joking. I'm serious. Su Qingsang blinked and looked at him, looking very serious. I really went out with a man and stayed in the same room for more than 2 hours. Honey, I was wrong. I shouldn't have doubted you. Hu Jinyao looked at her, leaned over and kissed her on the cheek, then quickly put on the suit. He was 1.88 meters tall, and his inverted triangular figure was a standard clothes rack. The royal blue suit made him look especially energetic. Su Qingsang took a step back and looked at Hu Jinyao. I have good taste, right? Of course. Hu Jinyao didn't care how the suit felt on him. He cared about Su Qingsang's feelings. Thank you, honey. You're welcome. Su Qingsang smiled and said, I did something wrong to you. Of course I have to treat you better. Honey. Hu Jinyao held her waist and lifted her up easily. I told you I was joking. I'm just kidding. Su Qingsang wanted to tell Hu Jinyao about what happened today. However, since Zhang Yichen said that she couldn't tell him, she wouldn't. She didn't know much about the army, but she understood that they had their own discipline. She thought for a long time, but in the end, she didn't tell Hu Jinyao what happened today. Su Qingsang didn't expect to see Zhang Yichen again at the Hu mansion that weekend. It was February in Rong City, and the weather was getting warmer. It had been almost a week since she had helped his friend with his work. Today, Zhang Yichen was wearing a military uniform, which made him look very different.
Su Qingsang couldn't help but take a few more glances at him because of his military uniform. Zhang Yichen was handsome as well, but not in the same way as Hu Jinyao. His facial features were more defined, and he had thick eyebrows and big eyes. His tall and strong body made him look energetic. Wearing such a military uniform, he looked like a tall and straight pine tree. Su Qingsang suddenly thought of the news on the internet. Indeed, all the handsome men were handed over to the government. A soldier like that was indeed very handsome. However, as soon as she looked at him, she met Zhang Yichen's eyes. He nodded at her almost imperceptibly as a sign of acknowledgement. Su Qingsang remembered that she had helped him with the wound of the crew cut, and she took it as a gesture of goodwill. She quickly withdrew her gaze and sat across from Old Master Hua with Hu Jinyao. As soon as they sat down, Lu Tongjia and Hu Mingguang came downstairs. They didn't get along well with Lu Tongjia, so Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao stood up to greet the two elders. Speaking of which, Su Qingsang's way of addressing Lu Tongjia was really awkward. She should have called her mother like Hu Jinyao. However, Lu Tongjia obviously didn't like it. Su Qingsang had been in Rong City for so long, but she had never called Lu Tongjia mother. Zhang Yichen couldn't help but look at Su Qingsang's face for a while when she heard Lu Tongjia call her aunt. Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao didn't notice it. Only Lu Tongjia saw Zhang Yichen's eyes, and her face darkened. During dinner, Su Qingsang found that Lu Tongjia's face was very gloomy. It was as if someone had offended her. Especially when she looked at Su Qingsang, her eyes were as sharp as knives. She didn't try to hide the dissatisfaction in her eyes. Other than dissatisfaction, there were some other emotions. Not only Su Qingsang, but even Old Master Hua and Zhang Yichen noticed that. "I'm full." Lu Tongjia didn't eat much, but she put down her chopsticks and left early. For some reason, Su Qingsang felt a little nervous. She couldn't help but look at Hu Jinyao, asking him what was going on with her eyes. Hu Jinyao gave her a look to tell her that it was okay. It wasn't the first time that Lu Tongjia had disliked them. Su Qingsang couldn't stop worrying, but it wasn't the time to ask Hu Jinyao. The atmosphere during dinner was very strange. After dinner, Old Master Hua asked Hu Jinyao to play chess with him. Zhang Yichen sat on the side and watched. Su Qingsang found it boring, so she told Hu Jinyao and went upstairs. Just like before, Su Qingsang took a shower and read for a while. She found that Hu Jinyao hadn't come upstairs yet. She thought about it and went straight to the gym. To her surprise, Hu Jinyao wasn't there. Zhang Yichen was alone in the gym. He was sitting on the machine and lifting dumbbells. His military uniform had been taken off, and he was only wearing a vest. Su Qingsang could see his overly strong muscles and wheat-colored skin at first glance. It was indecent. Su Qingsang was about to leave, but Zhang Yichen had already seen her. "Are you looking for Jinyao? He went to the study with my uncle." Su Qingsang nodded and was about to leave. She thought of something and stopped. She turned around and looked at Zhang Yichen. "Is that guy okay?" Zhang Yichen had already put down the dumbbells. He stood up and walked towards Su Qingsang. "He's fine." Zhang Yichen walked up to Su Qingsang. She didn't know how long he had been exercising. His face was a little red, but he wasn't sweating. He did have a fever in the middle of the night. "I did what you told me to do to lower his body temperature. The fever went down, and he woke up the next day." "That's good." Su Qingsang was just asking casually. She was relieved to know that he was fine. After all, he was the first non-female patient she had ever treated. She turned around to leave, but Zhang Yichen reached out his hand to hold her hand. Su Qingsang looked at his hand and instinctively stepped back. She stepped back too quickly and tripped over her right foot. Not only did she fail to dodge, but she also fell backwards. The moment she lost her balance, Zhang Yichen quickly caught her. Su Qingsang's body leaned against Zhang Yichen's chest. Su Qingsang quickly stood up with her hands on his chest. Her hands touched his firm chest, and Zhang Yichen's hands were on her waist. Su Qingsang felt uncomfortable being so close to him. She took a big step back after she steadied herself. She looked at Zhang Yichen with an unfriendly gaze. Zhang Yichen seemed to know what she was upset about,
but his expression didn't change. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank you." "No need." Su Qingsang's voice was cold. "You already said that last time." He already said that last time. This time, he just wanted to find an excuse to talk to her again. She was very close to him. The familiar aroma from last time rushed into his nose again. It was her aroma. He moved his toes slightly. He almost wanted to step forward and hold her like he did just now. However, Su Qingsang obviously didn't like him. She didn't even say a word to him. She turned around and left. Her footsteps were a little hurried, and she walked a little fast. Zhang Yichen's eyes followed her back until she disappeared around the corner. He couldn't see her anymore. He stood there and took a deep breath. He felt that the aroma didn't go away. Instead, it made him feel more and more distinct. Su Qingsang, he repeated the name in his heart. He was so focused that he didn't notice that Lu Tongjia was standing in the shadows at the other end of the corridor. Seeing the two of them hugging each other, even though she couldn't hear what they were talking about, it was enough for Lu Tongjia to imagine a lot of things. Her face was dark and cold, and she went up the other end of the passage through the kitchen to her room. Lu Tongjia asked Mrs. Su to go to the spa in the afternoon. Mrs. Su was Su Ruoli's mother. Because the two families had almost become in-laws, they had been in contact a lot. She often saw Mrs. Su. If it weren't for Hua Jinyao's refusal to marry Su Ruoli, their children would have been grown up. This time, it was even worse. She didn't know what Hua Jinyao said to Su Ruoli, but Su Ruoli said she was going abroad to study at the end of last year. She hadn't been home for several months. Mrs. Su didn't like Su Ruoli's behavior, but she knew that it was all Hua Jinyao's fault. However, she didn't even dare to blame Su Ruoli. Who could she blame for her daughter's stubbornness? Now that she had met Lu Tongjia, she had to be polite and polite. They went to the club and accidentally ran into Li Xiangyuan, who was with He Xianyao. The mother and daughter seemed to be there for the spa as well. Tongjia. Li Xiangyuan's eyes were full of surprise when she saw Lu Tongjia. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you here. Li Xiangyuan was Li Juansheng's aunt. Li Xiangyuan was born in the Li family and married into the He family. She was also He Xiankai and He Xuanyao's mother. The He family was not as powerful as the Hua family, let alone the Li family. However, the Li family had a lot of resources. When Li Xiangyuan married into the He family, it was considered a low marriage. She and Lu Tongjia had known each other since they were young and had a good relationship. It is quite a coincidence. Lu Tongjia greeted her and immediately saw He Xianyao, who was next to her. If she remembered correctly, He Xianyao had taken all kinds of opportunities to come to her house. She also knew that He Xianyao liked Hua Jinyao. Auntie Hua. He Xianyao had always been good in front of Lu Tongjia, and it was the same now. Chapter 496. Didn't He Xianyao visit the Hua family so often because she liked Hua Jinyao? If Hua Jinyao had married He Xianyao at that time, their children would have grown up by now. He Xianyao cared about Hua Jinyao so much that she wouldn't want to have children. Not to mention that Hua Jinyao would coax and flatter her every day. Thinking of this, Lu Tongjia looked at He Xianyao in a different way. He Xianyao felt a little uncomfortable under Lu Tongjia's gaze. The smile on her face froze. Lu Tongjia looked away and said calmly, "Since we met, let's go together. Just put it on my card for today." After the spa, Lu Tongjia suggested that they go for afternoon tea together. It was rare for her to be so interested in the spa. She was more enthusiastic than usual. The other three felt it, but they didn't know what Lu Tongjia wanted to do. After they went to a restaurant in a nearby 5-star hotel, Lu Tongjia pulled He Xianyao over and asked her to sit next to her. "Xianyao used to visit me often, but she hasn't been coming lately." "But you don't like me anymore?" "Why would I?" He Xianyao had been humiliated by Hua Jinyao. How could she go back to the Hua family? Although she didn't want to, the He family's business in Lin City had been taken away. She was really afraid of Hua Jinyao. "If you don't, you can come again next time. I'm old now, and I like to spend time with you young people." "Auntie, you must be joking. You're not old."
If I hang out with you now, people will think that you're my sister. You're such a sweet talker. Lu Tongjia's smile became brighter. I took it seriously. Next time, you have to come to see me more often. He Xianyao didn't understand what Lu Tongjia meant. Li Xiangyuan looked at Lu Tongjia's face and changed the topic. I heard that your son got married. Jin Yao has high standards. You might as well ask your daughter-in-law to accompany you instead of Xianyao. Lu Tongjia's face darkened when Li Xiangyuan mentioned Su Qingsang. She didn't hide her attitude at all. Mrs. Su and Li Xiangyuan looked at each other. Mrs. Su couldn't hide her curiosity and asked curiously, "What's wrong? You're married and you're not happy?" Happy? What was there to be happy about? Marrying a woman like that, he had no family background, no filial piety, and most importantly, his character was questionable. Every time she thought of what Su Qingsang had done with Zhang Yichen, she wanted to tell Hu Jinyao everything. However, she also knew that she didn't have any substantial evidence. Hu Jinyao was so obsessed with Su Qingsang that he wouldn't believe anything she said. She didn't speak, so the other two didn't know where to start. Lu Tongjia didn't want to talk about Su Qingsang. She felt disgusted. When they parted, she held He Xuanyao's hand and kept asking her to play. He didn't forget to say some specious words. She had always wanted a daughter-in-law like He Xianyao who had a good family background and a good family background. She wouldn't be an illegitimate daughter like Su Qingsang, who recognized her halfway. An illegitimate daughter was an illegitimate daughter. She couldn't be brought to the table. Hu Jinyao was obsessed and treated a blade of grass like a treasure. Lu Tongjia talked for a long time. Seeing that He Xianyao understood what she meant, she left. As soon as she left, Mrs. Su also left. He Xianyao sat in her seat and looked at Li Xiangshuan. She was confused. "Mom, what do you think Auntie Hua meant?" "I think she's dissatisfied with her daughter-in-law and wants Hu Jinyao to find another one." "That's impossible." She had heard a lot about the relationship between Hu Jinyao and Su Qingsang in Lin City, even though she didn't see them every day. How could Lu Tongjia have such a thought? "Didn't you hear her? She said that some women are so greedy these days. They don't want to have children, and they don't want to be filial to their elders." Li Xiangshuan was a smart woman. Hearing this, she understood everything. Even if Lu Tongjia didn't say it out loud, how could he not understand her insinuations? He Xuanyao's eyes lit up because of Li Xiangshuan's words, but only for a second. She thought of the humiliation she had suffered at the hands of Hu Jinyao and Su Qingsang. She was a little scared. "Mom, then tell me, are you stupid? You'd better not get involved in this kind of thing. After all, they are mother and son. She's just dissatisfied now. When she gets over it, they'll be fine, but you'll be in trouble." After all, Li Xiangshuan had lived for a few years. She had seen this kind of thing many times. He Xianyao stopped talking, but she couldn't suppress the thought in her heart. She hadn't fought back against Su Qingsang when she humiliated her last time. But she couldn't say that to others. If she could get Lu Tongjia's support and push Su Qingsang down from the position of the young madam of the Hua family, Li Xiangshuan was still explaining the situation, clearly telling her not to get involved with the Hua family. However, He Xianyao already had an idea, so she didn't listen to a word. Seeing that her daughter didn't object, Li Xiangshuan left with her. After these people left, the place became quiet. But no one noticed that behind them, there was a spot that was blocked by a potted plant. Su Peijian sat there, and the smile on her face looked very strange. Su Qingsang had slowly adapted to life in Rong City. Other than when she was on duty, she would go back to the Hua family with Hu Jinyao on weekends to spend time with old Master Hua. Although Lu Tongjia still didn't like her, she was mentally strong and didn't take Lu Tongjia's dislike to heart. As Hu Jinyao said, as long as old Master Hua was on their side, it didn't matter how much Lu Tongjia didn't like her. As for Zhang Yichen, he disappeared again after that day. Hu Jinyao mentioned that he went back to the army. Hu Jinyao seemed to be really close to this uncle of his. She could hear the closeness in Hu Jinyao's words. In fact, not only Hu Jinyao, but old Master Hua also liked this nephew very much. Every time Zhang Yichen was mentioned, he was full of praise. Su Qingsang didn't know if it was an illusion,
But every time old Master Hua and Hua Jinyao talked about Zhang Yichen, she always saw Lu Tongjia's face darken. Gradually, Su Qingsang figured out that Lu Tongjia didn't like Zhang Yichen, her cousin. However, what was the reason for this? At night, when they were sleeping, Su Qingsang rubbed her face against Hua Jinyao's chest and looked up at him. She wanted to say something but didn't. She mentioned her doubts to Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao looked at her with a smile on his face. "Do you care about my mother or my uncle?" "Do you care about my uncle?" "I don't care about either." Lu Tongjia didn't like Su Qingsang. She always talked to her like that. As for Zhang Yichen, there was a misunderstanding between them. Su Qingsang later found out that he was just trying to scare her, but she still felt uncomfortable. She wanted to stay far away from him. She only asked out of curiosity. "I'm just curious." Hua Jinyao didn't care about her curiosity. He put his arms around her and rested his chin on Su Qingsang's head. "My mother doesn't even like her own son. How could she like my uncle?" he said in a low voice. Su Qingsang said almost without thinking, "Then, why does your mother dislike you?" It was so strange. She knew it since she came to Rong City. Lu Tongjia didn't like Hua Jinyao at all, and it was unreasonable. Hua Jinyao was Lu Tongjia's only son. He was also the eldest son of the Hua family. Why didn't Lu Tongjia like him? Even though Su Qinghui loved Su Peixian, he didn't dislike Su Yusin. Even though she was an illegitimate daughter at that time, Su Qinghui just ignored her. He wouldn't treat her the way Lu Tongjia did. Su Qingsang didn't hear a reply. She instinctively wanted to look up, but Hua Jinyao pressed the back of her head tightly, not letting her look at him. Hua Jinyao? She wanted to see him clearly, but Hua Jinyao was very strong. He pressed her with one hand and turned off the light with the other. "Go to sleep." Su Qingsang didn't move. She could hear that Hua Jinyao's voice was much softer than before, but she didn't understand why. "Jinyao? Go to sleep." Hua Jinyao put his arms around her and lay down. He put his arms around her waist. The light in the room had been turned off. She couldn't see his expression, and she had no way of knowing what he was feeling. Since he didn't want to answer that question, Su Qingsang didn't ask. She put her arms around his waist and rubbed her face against his chest. She didn't ask again. Hua Jinyao didn't say anything. He felt the soft body of the person in his arms pressed tightly against him. She still had shower gel on her body, and there was a faint fragrance mixed with her own. He took a deep breath. He felt that his heartbeat, which had been disordered because of Su Qingsang's question, slowly returned to normal. Su Qingsang had been busy the whole day, so she was sleepy. She closed her eyes and fell asleep not long after. Hua Jinyao couldn't fall asleep. Listening to Su Qingsang's steady breathing in the dark, he slightly tightened his arms. After he fell asleep, he didn't hold her so tightly anymore. That night, the nightmare came again. The small, dark room. It was a mess everywhere. He ran in a panic, and behind him, the footsteps were getting closer and closer. Finally, an enlarged, extremely ferocious face came closer. The voice that came out of his mouth had troubled him for more than 20 years. "Go to hell. Go to hell." The chaotic images that kept flashing through his mind, as well as the words, "Go to hell." It made Hua Jinyao fall into a nightmare. What was different from the past was that he didn't wake up this time. His body was stiff, and his hands unconsciously began to exert force. Su Qingsang was woken up by the heat. In such weather, she felt the hands around her waist getting tighter and tighter. Chapter 497. Before she was fully awake, Su Qingsang heard some heavy breathing in the room. She raised her head. She couldn't see Hua Jinyao's expression clearly in the dark, but she could feel that his breathing was heavy. Su Qingsang raised her hand to turn on the bedside lamp and found that Hua Jinyao was sweating. She had never seen Hua Jinyao like this. "Jinyao? Hua Jinyao?" There was no response. Hua Jinyao's brows were tightly knitted, and his face was abnormally red. More and more sweat appeared on his forehead. Su Qingsang could tell that Hua Jinyao was in a terrible nightmare at the moment. Su Qingsang reached out to pat his face. Hua Jinyao seemed to pause for a moment, but soon he frowned again. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang called again, but found that Hua Jinyao showed no signs of waking up. She leaned over, held his face with both hands, and kissed his lips hard. At first, Hua Jinyao's body was very stiff, but slowly he relaxed. Later, his forehead stopped sweating and then he woke up. When he opened his eyes and saw what Su Qingsang was doing to him, Hua Jinyao was stunned for a moment. "You're awake." It was the first time Su Qingsang saw Hua Jinyao like this, and she was really scared. "Are you okay?" Hua Jinyao blinked and thought of the nightmare. He reached out and held Su Qingsang in his arms. "Did I scare you?" Su Qingsang was worried about him. She propped herself up and looked at his face. His forehead was still sweating. She reached out and took a tissue from the bedside table to wipe his sweat. Hua Jinyao let her do whatever she wanted and looked at her beautiful face, which was right in front of him. He suddenly flipped over and pressed her under his body. He lowered his head and kissed her lips heavily. It was different from the gentleness she had when she kissed him just now. His kiss was fierce, domineering, and lingering. Ever since the two of them got together, Su Qingsang hadn't seen Hua Jinyao so fierce for a long time. She closed her eyes and let him do whatever he wanted. She felt that he was filling her and becoming one with her. He was crazier than ever before. She responded by wrapping her arms around his waist so that he could indulge more. When it was all over, both of them were sweating. However, Su Qingsang was not in a hurry to take a shower. He was still on top of her and her hand was still on his back. "Are you all right?" Su Qingsang sounded a little nervous. Hua Jinyao remained silent. He buried his face into Su Qingsang's neck. She felt his breath brushing against the skin of her neck. It was a little itchy and a little hot. He did not say anything and she did not rush him. Subconsciously, she gently stroked his sweaty back. Again and again, she gently patted his back as if she was coaxing a child. Hua Jinyao closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "I'm fine." What could have happened to him? It was all in the past. He was no longer that child. He had grown up. Su Qingsang's lips moved. She wanted to ask him what had happened. She wanted to ask him what he was dreaming about. But in the end, she didn't ask anything. She gently patted his back until she was tired and fell into a deep sleep. Hua Jinyao propped himself up after she fell asleep and looked at her little face, which was flushed because of the entanglement just now. He lowered his head and gently kissed her on the forehead. He carefully turned over and held her in his arms. He found a relatively more comfortable position so that she could sleep better. He stopped thinking about the nightmare and the hideous face in the dream. Hua Jinyao did not have any more dreams. Su Qingsang observed him for a few more nights after that day, but she did not see Hua Jinyao have any more nightmares. Of course, it was also possible that he had a nightmare, but she did not notice it. After all, she slept very well most of the time. If she slept too deeply, even if he had a nightmare, she might not know. But after that day, Su Qingsang did not ask Hua Jinyao about the dream that night. After returning to the apartment in the city, Hua Jinyao became even busier. During this period of time, he had several times more social engagements than before. Sometimes he would ask her, but most of the time, she did not like to go to social engagements. Hua Jinyao did not force her. If she did not want to go, he would ask Yang Wencheng. She was still curious about Hua Jinyao's nightmare. She had a feeling that Hua Jinyao's nightmare had something to do with Lu Tongjia. Why did Lu Tongjia not like Hua Jinyao? Why did Hua Jinyao have a nightmare? She believed that the two things were related. Hua Mingguang and Hua Jinyao must know, but they would not say it. Su Qingsang thought of one person, Old Master Hua. Maybe when she went to the Hua family on Friday, she could ask Old Master Hua in private. When Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao entered the living room, they were stunned by the lively scene in front of them. In the living room, Old Master Hua was not there, nor was Hua Mingguang. Hua Mingmei and Hua Mingliang's families, who usually came, were not there. Other than Lu Tongjia, Li Wanyu, and He Shenyao were sitting on the sofa. He Shenyao was very smart. She knew that Hua Jinyao did not like her, and she had been ignored by him several times. However, Lu Tongjia's words moved her, so she couldn't help but want to try. but she was afraid that she would be humiliated by Hu Jinyao like before. So she called Li Wanyu. Li Wanyu was Li Juansheng's younger sister and her cousin. They had a good relationship. Most importantly, Hu Jinyao was very close to Li Junsheng. Hu Jinyao would not respect her, but he would respect Li Junsheng. But that was only He Xuanyao's opinion. Hu Jinyao would respect Li Junsheng, but only if Li Wanyu did not cause trouble. Brother Jinyao. Li Wanyu stood up when she saw Hu Jinyao. She had no other feelings for Hu Jinyao. She just saw him as a big brother. Knowing that he was married, but the person he married was neither Su Ruoli nor He Xianyao, made her feel a little uncomfortable. In her opinion, only the noble ladies in Rong City were worthy of Hu Jinyao. As for Su Qingsang, who appeared out of nowhere, who knew what kind of person she was? She had snatched Hu Jinyao away so easily. Especially He Xianyao, who had been visiting the Hua family so frequently. Everyone knew that Lu Tongjia liked her and wanted her to be her daughter-in-law. But now, they were robbed by an outsider. She had become a joke in Rong City. So when she heard He Xianyao say that Lu Tongjia only wanted her to accompany Hu Jinyao, she came without thinking. Last time, Hu Jinyao embarrassed them in front of Su Qingsang. Now, they had a chance to see Su Qingsang embarrass herself. They were all looking forward to it. Thinking of this, when Li Wanyu looked at Su Qingsang again, there was a faint emotion in her eyes. She probably didn't know that Lu Tongjia disliked her so much. Did she really think that she could be the young madam of the Hua family by marrying Hu Jinyao? Chapter 498. Su Qingsang saw He Xianyao at first glance. Naturally, she didn't miss the gloating look in Li Wanyu's eyes. She turned to look at Hu Jinyao and gave him a look. Hu Jinyao reached out and squeezed her palm, indicating that she had him to take care of everything. The corners of Su Qingsang's mouth lifted slightly. She found that she quite trusted Hu Jinyao now. The feeling of trusting a person, especially a man, was too subtle. But she found that she didn't have the initial resistance. Jinyao. Li Wanyu didn't miss the small interaction between Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao. To be honest, she felt a little uncomfortable. She felt that ever since Hu Jinyao got married, he had become less and less like the old Hu Jinyao. She would rather Hu Jinyao be as cold and aloof as he used to be. She didn't want him to ignore other women and only treat Su Qingsang well. Brother Jinyao. Xianyao and I happened to be free today, so we came to visit Auntie. We were just talking about you. Yeah, Hu Jinyao responded. Brother Jinyao. Li Wanyu was obviously dissatisfied with his cold attitude. However, He Xianyao tugged at her sleeve at this moment. After receiving He Xuanyao's hint, Li Wanyu stopped talking for the time being. Since you're back, it's just in time. Aunt Zhou has prepared dinner. You can eat later. As she spoke, she looked at He Xianyao affectionately and even reached out to pull her to her side. Stay and have dinner with me today. As long as Auntie doesn't mind. How could I dislike it? Lu Tongjia glanced at Su Qingsang out of the corner of her eye as she spoke. You're getting old, so it's inevitable that people will dislike you. You don't know how happy I am that you are willing to accompany me. Su Qingsang looked at the scene in front of her, speechless. People who didn't know better would think that He Xianyao was Lu Tongjia's child. Hu Jinyao squeezed her hand. His expression didn't change at all. Mom, where are Dad and Grandpa? Your grandfather went to your granduncle's place. Lu Tongjia had called He Xianyao over because the old man wasn't home today. If the old man was here, He Xianyao wouldn't have a chance. Not only was old Master Hua not there, but she also asked Hu Mingguang to send old Master Hua over. Li Wanyu sat at the dining table, watching Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao sitting together. Even if she didn't like Su Qingsang, she had to admit it. When the two of them sat down, their bodies actually had a similar aura. One was handsome, and the other was delicate. Most importantly, she watched Hu Jinyao put food and ladle soup into Su Qingsang's bowl naturally. It looked like he was very skilled. When had she ever seen Hu Jinyao like that? For a moment, their eyes widened. Even though she had no romantic feelings for Hu Jinyao, she couldn't help but feel jealous when she saw how well he treated a woman.
Speaking of which, Hu Jiniao was obviously the one who had known them longer, wasn't he? When had they ever seen him being nice to little sisters from aristocratic families like them? Li Wanyu was fine. Even if she felt uncomfortable, there was no love between a man and a woman, so she only felt her teeth ache. Did these two do it on purpose? She didn't believe that they were usually like this. Yi Xianyao had the same thought as Li Wanyu. She thought the scene in front of her was a public display of affection. Brother Jiniao, does Miss Su have no hands? Does she even need you to put food into her bowl? Su Qingsang, who had picked up her bowl of soup, was stunned and looked up at Yi Xianyao. She was about to speak, but Hu Jiniao pressed the back of her hand. Miss He is so young. How can she not see? Yi Xuanyao's face darkened. Seeing Lu Tongjia staring at Hu Jiniao angrily, she regained her courage and said, Of course I can see Miss Su's hands. She's an adult, but she still needs you to take care of her. Thinking about it, Brother Jiniao, you must be working hard. It's not hard at all. Hu Jiniao looked calm. Instead of restraining himself, he put more food into Su Qingsang's bowl with his chopsticks. I like to take care of her. Do you have a problem with that? Yi Xuanyao's face was pale. She felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. Enough. Lu Tongjia glanced at Yi Xianyao. How could she be liked by Hu Jiniao? She used to think that she was smart. How could she be so stupid? Let's eat. Why are you talking so much? She said to Hu Jiniao. She looked at Yi Xianyao again. Although she hated her for being so useless, she softened her tone and said, Xianyao, Hu Jiniao is just like that. He's not targeting you. Don't take it to heart. Su Qingsang really admired Lu Tongjia at this moment. She was really good at lying through her teeth. Looking at Hu Jiniao, she quietly put some beef into his bowl with her chopsticks and smiled at him. The meaning of that look was quite obvious. See, I'm taking care of you too. Hu Jiniao smiled. The corners of his mouth turned up, and he seemed to be in a good mood. He liked that Su Qingsang looked cold, but from time to time, she would show a bit of slyness like a fox. The interaction between the two of them seemed to be carried out quietly. But they weren't blind. Li Wanyu looked at Hu Jiniao and Su Qingsang, then looked at Yi Xianyao. She suddenly felt that Yi Xuanyao's fighting ability was so weak that she probably had no chance. She had come here for nothing. Looking at Hu Jiniao, he didn't care about anyone else. Although she was spoiled, she was also proud. Naturally, she wouldn't do anything that would lower her status. Maybe she should listen to her brother and stay out of these things. Li Wanyu thought for a while and understood, but Yi Xianyao didn't. She had liked Hu Jiniao before. Later, when she was humiliated, she not only refused to give up, but also became more and more unwilling. Now, with Lu Tongjia's support, she felt that she could still fight for him. After dinner, Li Wanyu sat with Su Qingsang for a while. She saw that Su Qingsang and Hu Jiniao were so intimate, as if there was no one else around. She was more and more sure of her previous thoughts. The most important thing was that she still had to worry about Li Junxing. If Li Junxing knew that she had intervened in Hu Jiniao's business, he would probably be unhappy. Thinking of this, Li Wanyu didn't want to stay any longer, so she got up and said goodbye. Lu Tongjia was surprised that Li Wanyu wanted to leave so early, but Li Wanyu wasn't the highlight of the night, so she didn't have to ask her to stay. She asked Hu Jiniao to see Li Wanyu off. When she asked Yi Xianyao to come today, she specifically told her not to drive over. Hu Jiniao sat next to Su Qingsang and didn't move. Don't we have a chauffeur at home? Lu Tongjia's face suddenly darkened. You and Junsheng are so close. What's wrong? Can't you take your sister home for a while? It's okay. It's the same if the chauffeur takes her home. Li Wanyu was smart now. No matter what Lu Tongjia and Yi Xianyao wanted to do, she didn't want to get involved. No way. Let Jiniao take you home. Lu Tongjia was very insistent. She stared at Hu Jiniao with obvious dissatisfaction. She had made up her mind to let him take Li Wanyu home. Jiniao, just take her home. Su Qingsang didn't know what Lu Tongjia was planning, but she didn't mind seeing what else Lu Tongjia wanted to do. Hu Jiniao gave Su Qingsang a disapproving look, but Su Qingsang winked at him.
The two of them had been together for a few months and had gradually developed a tacit understanding. Hua Jinyao understood with one look from her. Although he didn't agree, he still stood up and said, "Wan Yu, let's go." After all, she was Li Juanxing's sister and lived not far from the Hua family. She reluctantly took her home. Hua Jinyao left, leaving only Lu Tongjia, Su Qingsang, and He Xianyao in the living room. Lu Tongjia held He Xuanyao's hand and talked to her affectionately. Su Qingsang looked at the two of them, who were as warm as mother and daughter. Not only did she not feel annoyed, but she also found it interesting. He Xianyao was a little proud at first. But this smugness soon disappeared. Su Qingsang didn't look sad at all. She didn't even look aggrieved. Instead, she looked like she was watching a good show. Didn't she care about Lu Tongjia's feelings for her at all? She didn't know that Su Qingsang was really strong-willed. As an illegitimate daughter, she was ignored by Li Qinxue and looked down on by the servants of the Li family. Compared to them, Lu Tongjia's case was nothing. Lu Tongjia looked at Su Qingsang's calm face, and her anger rose little by little. She patted He Xuanyao's hand and said with a sigh, "Speaking of which, Jinyao has been busy with work these years. Thank you for coming here to keep me company. Auntie, you're welcome. I'm not being polite. I really like you." Lu Tongjia glared at Su Qingsang as she spoke. Her attitude towards He Xianyao was completely different from how she treated Su Qingsang. She looked at He Xianyao as if she was looking at her own daughter. "Xianyao, it would be great if you were my daughter-in-law." "Auntie." No matter how thick-skinned He Xianyao was, she was still very embarrassed. "I'm telling the truth. You're so polite and considerate. I believe that if you were my daughter-in-law, you would take good care of Jinyao, and not just let him take care of you." As she spoke, she glanced at Su Qingsang again. The meaning of that look was very obvious. Su Qingsang didn't seem to see it. She touched her nose and felt that the scene in front of her was quite interesting. "But it's not too late. Xianyao, are you willing to be my daughter-in-law?" Su Qingsang blinked. She, the main character, was still here. Was it really okay for them to say this in front of me? "Auntie." He Xianyao blushed. I am willing." Su Qingsang was glad that she didn't drink water. If she drank water now, she would definitely spit it out. "I knew I was right about you." Lu Tongjia breathed a sigh of relief. When she looked at Su Qingsang, there was contempt in the corner of her eyes. "After all, you're much better than some selfish people who only care about themselves." "Auntie." After hearing that, Su Qingsang asked casually, "Does Jinyao have any other brothers?" "Don't play dumb. I'm talking about Jinyao." Chapter 499. Auntie. He Xianyao was embarrassed, but she still nodded. I do." Lu Tongjia seemed to have found some courage. She turned to Su Qingsang and said, "Did you hear that?" "She does." Su Qingsang nodded. She wasn't deaf. Missy likes to be a mistress. If she hadn't wanted to figure out what Lu Tongjia and He Xianyao were up to, she would have left already. She didn't expect to hear such a ridiculous conversation. Since they were so shameless, she couldn't be blamed for being rude. He Xuanyao's face turned from red to white. She stared at Su Qingsang as if she wanted to burn a hole in her body. "What are you talking about?" Lu Tongjia couldn't bear it anymore. "Who wants to be a mistress? If you don't want to be a mistress, how do you plan to marry Jinyao?" Su Qingsang blinked. Her pretty face was full of confusion. "Why do I remember that I'm Jinyao's wife? Why don't you just divorce Jinyao?" Lu Tongjia looked at Su Qingsang and didn't hide her dissatisfaction. "Why don't you look at yourself? How are you good enough for Jinyao?" "Auntie, it's not up to you or me to decide whether I'm good enough for him or not. It's up to Jinyao to decide. Don't you think so? At the very least, if Jinyao wants a divorce or has other thoughts, he'll come to me himself. It's not right for you to make the decision for him." Su Qingsang, you think you have him in your hands, don't you? "Auntie, you may have misunderstood." Su Qingsang knew that Lu Tongjia didn't like her, but she didn't really mind. After all, she wasn't money. Not everyone liked her. Jin Yao and I are equal. I don't have him in my hands, and he doesn't need me to. That's one thing. Secondly, Jin Yao and I have registered our marriage certificate. We are legally married. Our relationship is protected by the law. Even you don't have the right to ask for a divorce. Su Qingsang, don't you feel ashamed saying that? What did you do to make Jin Yao marry you? Do you really think other people are stupid and can't figure it out? What method did she use? Su Qingsang blinked her eyes. She really didn't know when she had played tricks on Jin Yao. Su Qingsang, if you still want to save face, you should take the initiative to give up your position. Don't make everyone look bad when the time comes. Auntie, I'm sorry. It was precisely because I wanted face that I couldn't give up my position. After all, I didn't cheat, and I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I ask to leave the court? You haven't done anything wrong? You don't even want to have children. Why would the Hua family need a daughter-in-law like you? Or have you changed your mind now? Are you willing to have children now? I don't want to. Su Qingsang was not averse to having children. After all, she was an obstetrician and gynecologist. She just felt that it was still too early for her to have a child 2 years later. However, now that she was provoked by Lu Tongjia's aggressive attitude, she became rebellious. Auntie, I can tell you very clearly. I've already discussed it with Jin Yao. We don't plan on having children anytime soon. Lu Tongjia was so angry that she laughed. Listen. You don't want to have children with Jin Yao, and you want to stop others from having children? How can you do that in the world? Su Qingsang frowned. Before she could speak, Lu Tongjia continued, you saw it yourself. Xian Yao is better than you in all aspects, whether in terms of family background or appearance. Most importantly, she is sincere to Jin Yao. She doesn't have any ulterior motives. She is willing to do everything for Jin Yao, to bear his children. You can't do those things. If you have self-awareness, you should divorce Jin Yao as soon as possible. Don't waste his time. Xian Yao blushed and sat on the side without saying anything. Su Qingsang looked at the shy look on her face and suddenly smiled. Auntie, I don't dare to say whether I will waste his time or not. But if Miss He really wants to be with him, I'm afraid that will really be a waste of his time. Her slightly narrowed eyes were full of cunning. She had known that Xian Yao was shameless for a long time. Since that was the case, there was no need to save her face. After all, she took off her clothes and slept with Jin Yao, but he didn't have any reaction. Under such circumstances, how could Jin Yao have a child with her? Xuan Yao's face was like a color palette that had been overturned. Her face was green, then white, then red, then black. She looked at Su Qingsang and suddenly stood up. She bit her lip and was about to rush out. Xianyao. Lu Tongjia grabbed her hand and turned to look at Su Qingsang. What nonsense are you talking about? You can ask Jin Yao whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Su Qingsang stood up. She was tired of watching the show and didn't want to see it anymore. Miss He, if you want to have a child with Jin Yao, I won't object. But the premise is that you can find a way to make Jin Yao interested in you. Otherwise, how are you going to have a child? You are shameless. Xian Yao knew what she had done, but when she saw the faint doubt on Lu Tongjia's face, she couldn't say what she had done. She turned to Su Qingsang and said, don't be too proud. Jin Yao is just infatuated with you. He will see it sooner or later. It's okay. Infatuation is better than not having feelings for you. But you should think about what you can do next time. After all, you stripped naked in front of a man, but he ignored you. That's so embarrassing. Xian Yao bit her lip hard. She didn't care that Lu Tongjia was still holding her hand. She shook off Lu Tongjia's hand and rushed out without looking back. She left in a hurry, but Su Qingsang could still hear her sobbing and see a few drops of tears falling from her eyes. Lu Tongjia's face darkened. She stared at Su Qingsang with her sharp eyes, as if she wanted to pierce through her. I didn't know that you were such a sharp-tongued person. Auntie, you are too kind. Su Qingsang took it as a compliment. I'm actually quite clumsy. I just like to tell the truth. Lu Tongjia's face turned green. You are indeed a schemer.
I want to see. How long can you use those tricks on Jinyao? Andy, I want to know too. How about I ask him for you next time? Su Qingsang found that she was becoming more and more shameless in front of Lu Tongjia. Lu Tongjia was so angry that she couldn't speak. In the end, she could only glare at Su Qingsang, turn around, and go upstairs without looking back. Su Qingsang felt a little helpless. Although she knew that it wasn't entirely her fault, she felt a little wronged that Lu Tongjia hated her so much. She turned around and saw that Hua Jinyao had come back. He stood at the gate and looked at her with a faint smile on his face. You're back. Before she could walk up to him, Hua Jinyao had already walked up to her, reached out, and pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her forehead, with a smile on his face. You didn't give it away? Why are you back so soon? Not far. Hua Jinyao didn't want to tell her that he had warned Li Wanyu in the car. He was willing to care about his friendship with Li Junxing, but Li Wanyu had to think clearly about whether she was going to go against him. He suddenly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against her face. He Xianyao wants to have children with me. You don't object? What are you thinking? Su Qingsang blushed. Did he hear that? I'm not interested in her. Hua Jinyao suddenly carried her in his arms. But I don't agree with what you said. He lowered his head and looked at her, his eyes full of seriousness. Next time, if someone says they want to have children with me, you can just say that I don't agree. After all, I'm yours now. Su Qingsang put her arms around his neck when she lost her balance. She also raised her head to look at him. Mine alone? Of course. Mrs. Hua. Su Qingsang smiled because of the way he called her Mrs. Hua. The drama she had just watched would be a sideshow. She took the initiative to put her lips on his and gave him a sweet kiss. However, when she was about to move away, Hua Jinyao caught her lips and deepened the kiss. With his tall figure, Hua Jinyao easily carried Su Qingsang upstairs. As for He Xianyao, who had made such a scene today, who cared about her? When Su Qingsang saw Shi Mengwan at the airport, her face was especially bright. She almost jumped up and hugged her. Previously, Shi Mengwan had said that she would come to Rong City to play with her. However, after waiting for more than a week, there was no news. She thought that she wouldn't come. Seriously, you only sent me a message before you got on the plane. Fortunately, I didn't have surgery today. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to pick you up. Although she didn't have surgery today, she had to go to work. Fortunately, Sun Huiya saw that she usually behaved well. She agreed immediately when she asked for leave for a while. I just wanted to give you a surprise. Shi Mengwan pulled her close. Although it was already spring in Rong City, it was much colder than Lin City. Although it was already spring, it was much colder than Lin City. Looking around, she was a little disappointed. Why is there no snow? Did you think there would be snow? It melted long ago. Why didn't you say so earlier? I'll take you to the snow country next time. The snow had melted long ago. Besides, even in the north, it didn't snow every day. But this time, I'll eat you first. Warmly welcome. Su Qingsang took the luggage from her hands and took her to the parking lot outside. After putting her luggage in her car, Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao got in. When Shi Mengwan got off the plane, she wore a scarf and sunglasses. Now that she was in the car, she took off the scarf and sunglasses, revealing her face. Su Qingsang was about to start the car, but when she saw her face, she stopped. She leaned over and stared at Shi Mengwan's face. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.